time the full-time whistle went just exactly at the same time. What a season it's been for Manchester City, just incredible.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Yeah, it's 7:30 on this Friday morning. Very good morning to you. Welcome along to OTB AM. Owen, how are you doing?
Very well, how are you?
Stephen Kelly, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Welcome along.
Thanks for having me again.
Delighted to have you along. Nice quiet week around here. So
yeah, it's all nice and easy. Not much to talk about at all.
Not much to chat about. We might get to some of that a bit later on, of course. You were watching the game last night?
Yeah, I was at the game last night.
We're flying it. We're going to walk this group.
Yeah, that's it.
Short story.
No, it was very good in the sense of to show the desire and the ability to come back, because we've done it twice now. We've done it against Denmark, we've done it against Switzerland, two big teams, two of the teams in the group that we would have expected to have the toughest games against, and for us to go 1-0 down against both of them and show we weren't going to crumble, considering they had probably a lot of possession and some chances, that we had to come back into it and get a goal was great. So, and for McGoldrick to get off the mark with his first goal was really important. Was he the one that impressed you most last night? Looking at a lot of the player ratings this morning, including some on our own website that are particularly harsh, and I might tell you they're L'Equipe style cutting. Was he the one that stood out for you, or who was your... Yeah, I thought McGoldrick was excellent. Stevens, the second half came in. I thought Sheahan was very good throughout the whole game. Yeah, I thought he was excellent.
There was a bit of aggro about him I saw last night, which isn't always a facet of his game.
Yeah, Sheahan is an aggressive little guy when he gets going. He's tenacious, and he's got a lot of desire about him. And last night he knew it was a big game, and I think he just got into the swing of it and was not letting anything go. And even at the end, there was about the 87th, 89th minute, and he picked the ball up inside his half and just drove forward with us, like the energy and level of just, I suppose, desire to get up the pitch and drive us forward. And in that late stage of the game was brilliant, and it was great to see him back to be able to be at those levels, because last year there was a lot of questions about whether he was able to get back to do that, and I think he did yesterday. A couple of really important defensive headers at the far post as well from himself and Judge, so it was nice to see.
Yeah. Switzerland are clearly a very, very good side, and like if you look on the balance of things, if you look at it statistically, if you look at the quality all around the pitch, they will be disappointed that they came away without getting 3 points there. And I don't know, do we have this crazy ability for teams to kind of play down to us sometimes? That's like, often we talk about how we play down to the opposition when it comes to, say, the Gibraltar game in particular this year, but it seems that we've had the opposite effect against Switzerland here, particularly in the final third. Their end product was bad for a lot of the game.
I think they're definitely, in the final third, they were missing it's just a natural goal scorer, really. Bolo looked like he could be a world beater. His pace was frightening, and I'd say a couple of times in the first half, Duffy had gone tight and he just spun him, and you think, oh my God, this guy is going to tear us apart. But we got to grips with it, and the chances he did have, he fluffed. He went through on goal, had a great opportunity, slipped, kicked the ball off his own leg. Then later on, he's got himself in behind the defence and clipped a really dangerous ball into the far post, and Judge had, fortunate enough, had tracked the man all the way in and cleared it. They look very assured. You can see why they are where they are in the world, because all throughout the park they're consistent performers. The two centre backs, although those three of them, but Shar and the centre back beside him, when they drove out with the ball, they looked very dangerous and accomplished, and they were able to, that part of the game which we didn't really deal with very well, when they drove forward, they drew bodies towards us and they picked passes around us, or else no one engaged them, which happened for the goal, and they just went through. But they do look a very good side, and you can see why they're such consistent performers. And then on top of that, if you throw Shaqiri into the mix, which he wasn't there last night, they've got someone who is a game changer, who floats about a game, and you don't really know what person's going to turn up, but in a blink of an eye he can do something amazing. So to have a player like that at their disposal is going to be important for them as well.
Yeah, like I don't know, I think that there was kind of a rope-a-dope element to how Ireland performed last night, was there not? Yeah. I mean, in terms of them, like, I don't want to keep using this phrase, bringing Switzerland down to our level, but in terms of that quality, I mean, the chasm in quality wasn't obviously evidence in the end results. That's pretty clear. But it wasn't actually evidence in terms of a huge number of quality chances that really and truly had Ireland on the right. Like, this is down to their quality in the final third. I accept that. And I do wonder, like, if you put that performance, now I didn't think it was an amazing performance.
I think they've been incredibly generous, by the way, and we're going to get that out there straight off the bat. Like, rope it up suggests some level of control that I'm not sure that, I mean, there were a couple of massive opportunities. There was one where that guy slipped on his arse just as he was about to pull the trigger in an excellent position.
But just to finish my point, like, that probably is being extremely generous. I didn't think it was an amazing performance, but I think if you take this performance and you put it into 2018, it's one of our better performances that, say if you do concede that, right, we're the second best team on the pitch, you still had two okay chances in the first half. You still had two moments where you're like actually glued to the TV, you're out of your seat a little bit, or if you're in the stadium, you're actually getting up and you're getting behind the team a little bit more than you would 12 months ago. I think they like on the counter attack mainly, but still what McGoldrick gives us since McCarthy's taken over is this target man who's brilliant at holding up the ball, who actually enables Ireland to get forward, to actually create something even up against an excellent team in Switzerland.
I was talking about it last night. I was saying it'd be great if there was two of them because he does so well in the hole and he's got such great feet and linking up play, but then he runs the channels really well and he gets forward and he holds the ball up really well, so you almost need another one of them behind him so he can feed himself. But I thought he was excellent last night again. His work rate, his attitude, when he went through on goal and he put the ball in for Robinson, he needed to clip it to get in because Robinson was keeping the line with the player, so he couldn't sprint in ahead of him. He would have been offside and McGoldrick would have had to lift it over the defender's head, but the pace he showed to get into that position, knock around the defender, I just thought to myself, a player who's fully confident and believes in his ability just takes that on himself, has a shot across goal, keeper spills it, and then Robinson's tapping it in. It's one of those efforts that you just feel like, just hit it yourself. You don't even need to. I know it's a long way out, but a lot of strikers in that position won't cross it. They'd be just shooting. So for him to get his first goal, I think was imperative for himself going forward. He hasn't scored in the Premiership yet this season. It's going to give him great confidence, and his performance is all they've been missing is a goal. So last night it's been really well deserved.
I will say I described it as a kick in the balls for Switzerland last night on Twitter. Maybe that's more apt than rope-a-dope. It's kind of like him a little bit out of nowhere.
I think that there's an entirely other way of looking at it, in that I believe we're incredibly fortunate. Like, Switzerland are a team that obviously were without Shaqiri, fair enough. We're 3-0 up on Denmark in the last game before obviously that went to shit for them, but that's the sort of team that they are, and they could have easily have been the same thing against us if they'd taken some of those opportunities that they had managed to create. Like, I know that there's a lot been made, and we can discuss it in a bit more detail later on about, when we go 1-0 down, the attitude changes and the momentum changes and why we couldn't do a bit of that a bit earlier. But there's definitely a feeling that Switzerland could have had that game well out of sight, and it would have been a very different conversation this morning.
No, the way the first half at spells they dominate possession throughout the whole game, but at times they cut us apart, and it looked worrying because the way they played, and we did put in a few last ditch tackles and throwing our bodies on the line. Defensively, we look good, but when they drove, like I said, when the centre-backs drove forward, it changed everything for us because no one took responsibility to go out and engage them. We just allowed them to keep coming, and then at the point when someone did go out, we were not organised behind, so when the pass went through, people had to pick up pockets, and then they were through and goal. So there is definitely issues that we need to work on. But in saying that, we've still drawn 2 games against the 2 best oppositions that we're playing against. One was away, one's at home. At some point, we're going to have to win one of these games if we want to qualify. We have to, I think, to get through, we're going to have to beat Denmark or Switzerland. It's going to have to be Switzerland away or Denmark at home now. So which one of those two? And it just depends on those teams that turn up, because if they perform the way they did but have better finishing, they could beat us. They could beat us comfortably. That's the difficulty.
We're going to remind ourselves of exactly what happened last night. Enough of my negativity. We're going to remind ourselves of what happened. We'd live commentary and off the ball. Nathan was alongside David Myler.
What a moment that almost was for Glenn Whelan. A pile driver of a shot from 30 yards. Nearly smashed the crossbar. McLean's cross deflects into the air. But Ireland enables! And David McGoldrick gets his first international goal at the perfect time for Mick McCarthy. It was coming in the last couple of moments. Whelan smashed the crossbar. Ireland kept it alive, and the cross from Enda Stevens was met by David McGoldrick 5 yards out, and he did enough to put it past the Swiss goalkeeper. Listen to the noise around this stadium. That is what it means David McGoldrick will remember that moment for the rest of his life. It's the Republic of Ireland 1, Switzerland 1, 5 minutes left.
Yeah, sure, it was brilliant, really, when you think about it. 20k on this Friday morning. Here's what's coming up between now and 9:30. We've Stephen Kelly, as you've been hearing from his studio, much more on that Ireland game for Stephen. So if you have any questions or comments for him, do please get them into us. We're going to tell you what's happening in the sports pages very shortly. Ireland 1, Switzerland 0. It says on the graphic there. So I mean, maybe there's
certainly sounded like
parallel universe here. I mean, I'm up for that. I'm definitely up for it. Ireland, plenty of Ireland reaction over the course of the morning as well. We'll be chatting to Kevin Kilbane.
Switzerland have just equalised.
Oh, brilliant! Who got that? Shar, was it? With plenty of reaction to that Ireland game for you over the next while. We're going to be hearing from Kevin Kilbane, as you can see there, just after 9 o'clock. We're going to be hearing from our roadshow, Cabaret Roadshow at the Bogash Energy Theatre as well during the week. You probably haven't heard very much about this, but we had Roy Keane on the show during the week, and Gary Neville was alongside him as well. They had some interesting stuff to say, so we're going to bring you some of that at about 8:20. And Alan Quinlan is going to join us in the studio. It's a massive weekend in rugby as well, as Joe Schmidt signs off on his Dublin leg, certainly of his Ireland career, as that Irish team prepare to jet off to Japan. So that's what's coming your way between now and 9:30. But right now, time for the papers. We're going to kick you off with the Irish Times this morning, and it is pretty much across all the newspapers, as you can well imagine, reaction to that game last night. And pretty much that same photograph, it has to be said as well, Didsy. It's a brilliant
it's nice
nickname, isn't it?
Yeah, I like
Something very, just even saying it.
Yeah.
Just a good nickname.
It just
good football
he's endearing, isn't he, to you? He was straight away without even knowing him. You think, oh, I like him.
Yeah, and I know him.
Yeah, I know
Didsy,
yeah.
Great guy. More of those goals he bangs in, the better. Ken Early writing about that game there last night and all the player ratings as well. Jeff Hendrick and Callum Robinson with the lowest of Rory Croak's player ratings there in the Irish Times. And McCarthy hails a very Irish performance, which probably best sums it up. That's the Irish Times for you this morning.
I have the Sun Sport here, and again, it's main headlines: Ireland, Switzerland, Swiss off life. Talking about Didsy's goal again and the performance they've put in. McCarthy hailed his team for their never give up attitude and told opponents, "You'll have to kill us to get rid of us," which is probably right.
The Herald's obviously leading with the same thing. It's Ireland and all the back pages really this morning. David to the rescue, they say. McGoldrick's first Ireland goal earns battling draw. You've got a couple of other stories here as well. Dub hero Brennan poised for tip role. So former Sligo and Waterford football manager Niall Carew has joined forces with All-Ireland winning Dublin defender Ger Brennan to seek the vacant Tipperary football job. So Carew will have Ger Brennan in his backroom team if they get approval later this month. So it seems that they are the front runners to take on that job. Peter Creedon, a former Tip manager who was in place prior to Liam Curran's in late 2015, is also understood to be part of that ticket. So Peter Creedon, Niall Carew and Ger Brennan looks to be the three-man team going in to take over Tipperary if they are ratified, as they say, later on this month. And Dubs need huge improvement, says Kieran Whelan on the All-Ireland Football Final replay.
I hope there's more of that trend, by the way, that Peter Creedon going back into Tipperary, like the Eamon O'Shea stuff that we've seen in Tipperary, that's obviously worked out exceptionally. The Stephen Rochford stuff at Donegal that maybe hasn't borne the fruit that they might like just yet, but like that idea of, I've always felt it was craziness in GAA where you had these exceptional coaches and managers that operate at the highest level and then ultimately just get spat out of the game, never to come back into it in a way that it's a brain drain on the tactics of GAA.
It's probably just, like Mick McCarthy called that, a typical Irish performance. Is this typical Irish management that county board kind of gets rid of a manager and then they just find it too awkward to ever pick up the phone to him? There's just a matter of pride often when it comes to these decisions, that you can't be seen even offering a former manager a non-managerial role because it might bruise their ego or something like that. But as you've seen, that's not the case at all.
Yeah, and we tend to sneer at it at times, like, oh, that guy's on the circuit, but actually that's for the development of Gaelic games, that would be a good thing. Anyway, the Racing Post for you this morning: get back on track. Ryan Giggs here. Wales can start the road to recovery. Wales against Azerbaijan tonight at 7:45, and some stuff there about Scotland as well.
I have the Mirror Sport, and obviously the main one is McGoldrick. David breaks Ireland's duck with priceless header. Just talking about the game again. And then at the top here you have Real is not the hell that Tottenham was insists for Gareth, which is referring to Gareth Bale has broken his silence on Real Madrid over the summer. It's quite tumultuous about him going, staying, and now he's there playing and he seems to be the big star again.
The Irish Daily Star is gold and goal. which is, if you're listening to us this morning, the goal is in goals, and that is a reference to David McGoldrick there celebrating with his teammates after the equaliser last night. Brawley's ref apology also makes the back page of the Irish Daily Star. RT pundit Joe Brawley has apologised to referee David Goff after comments on the Sunday Games coverage at the All-Ireland final, which is interesting because he actually doubled down on his comments on Monday night on Radio Kerry, but clearly didn't actually watch the game in that period. But since then, he's obviously gone back and watched it and has apologised to David Goff.
What was the nature of? I don't want to hear what he said the first time. But what was his apology? Was what that he went over the top, at presuming at some level.
I don't know. There's no quote. There's no quote on the back page here. This is something I saw doing the rounds yesterday. Like, I mean, an actual apology. Oh, sorry, it's in his Gaelic Life column. My bad. Sorry, we had this on yesterday morning show. This is in yesterday's Gaelic Life. Brawley stuck to his guns in arguing that Cooper hadn't fouled David Clifford in the penalty incident, but he apologised for going too far. Right. So he hasn't actually changed his mind. I believe he was played. This is in relation to David Goff. I suggested in the heat of the moment that David may have been influenced by the propaganda emanating from Kerry in the lead up to the game. Afterwards, I contacted David to apologise for this. It was wrong of me and unfair on David, who is a man of integrity and honour. So he still says he got it wrong, but it was just a human error rather than any propaganda.
Because it was just a penalty. He could have just watched it back and said, you know what, actually I was wrong. It was just a penalty. I watched it back in the cold light of day, which it was kind of inarguable.
I thought so too, but
I saw it was when he pulled him with the arm.
The penalty was around the neck actually, and then did the pull. So it was. I don't know. It's he's sticking to his guns, Brawley. Is this a counter propaganda campaign? I wonder.
I'm not sure my head can take that, particularly like 8 days out.
Yeah, but it's obviously Conor Lane replay. Yeah. I'm trying to think, is that a good or a bad thing? A Cork man refereeing Kerry. There's too many kind of loopholes here. Meath man against Dublin, pro Dublin, and then a Cork man.
Has there not been like an official directive from the Kerry Mafia to say, listen, here's our stance now, this is our approach for the next week?
After last Sunday, the batteries in our earpieces are all gone. Our pages are all gone. We need to charge up our pages. It's like The Wire when the people on the street used to page their fellow dealers to come meet them at a phone box. That's myself and the Kerry Mafia.
I'm glad you've used that analogy. What else have you got, Stephen, for us there?
That was me. I'm done.
Done?
Yeah. Oh, actually, no, I have the Times, which is the English Times, so you can tell because the back page is covered in cricket. So England made it easy for me, say Smith. It was referring to Smith getting 2 and 11 in the cricket yesterday. England have got a lot to do to get back into it, and Aussies look like they're on their way to successfully getting the Ashes back.
Cool. Just a couple of the UK back pages. As you say, the cricket is dominating proceedings across the water. Double trouble is the back page of The Guardian. Root and Bayliss watch on as Smith racks up the runs. An incredible showing, really, over the past couple of days. Steve Smith, double century in Manchester, as they declared, for 497 for 8. And he is the lead on the Daily Telegraph as well. Ashes agony. Smith reprieved after no ball to hit brilliant double century. Stokes injured as England wilt despite Root's warning.
A couple more from me here to wrap up. We're going to get the Irish Independent here. McCarthy, it was like the good old days. Mick McCarthy after David McGoldrick's goal last night. Carew, as Owen's been mentioning, adds former Dublin star Brennan Tipperary coaching ticket. Tomás O'Shea, this is selling forward to tomorrow's Irish Indo. Dublin were like Ivan Drago in the Rocky movies, but Kerry will regret not finding a knockout.
So you rope it up as speed and take it on a few. Good news.
What do you think about that Ivan Drago? Well, I mean, he's setting them up because ultimately Ivan Drago was beaten, right? So.
Yeah, in the end, yeah. I know.
Well, look, the rope it up thing does kind of stand true. Is the Ireland-Switzerland comparison true? Like poor Ireland being poor Kerry next weekend going up against the might of Switzerland, that is Dublin. So,
and does that make it's Dublin or Ivan Drago that makes Kerry Rocky?
Yeah, I'd take Rocky in that case. You know,
every time.
Ivan Drago, but basically a robot from the east. It's all the kind of things
kind
that
of
make
quiet, unassuming, sort of goes about his business very quietly, but generally gets it done outside of being beaten by Rocky.
If you multiply Johnny Cooper by 4, you would have Ivan Drago. Just a bigger, blockier version of Johnny Cooper. Even though like Johnny Cooper can hold his own. If Johnny Cooper was a heavyweight boxer, he'd be Ivan Drago.
Kerry lash out at Dublin is what I'm taking from all of that.
Ivan Drago is one of the most iconic fictional boxers that's ever existed.
You've just used the word.
He's right over your shoulder, actually.
Robot.
Well, yeah. There's nothing wrong with a robot. I think this is actually the second time we've had this weird conversation on the show. We actually had a conversation about how not all robots are evil a couple of months ago on this very programme. But
Right. Are there any good examples of non-evil robots?
Wall-E, you know. Nunu from the Teletubbies as well was another one.
Nunu is a good one.
It's although that's just a Hoover, isn't it?
R2D2.
No, R2D2, exactly.
Also
C-3PO as well.
Yeah.
In fact, most robots are nice, so.
By all accounts. Right, let's move on. The Irish Examiner, then finally, it's that photograph of Dave McGoldrick there. McGolden goal, towering header rescues, precious point for Ireland, and Ronan O'Gara makes his return to the Irish Examiner today, and he questions, which is a point we'll get into with Alan Quinlan a bit later on, he questions the idea entirely of Ireland taking on a full-blooded Wales team this weekend as part of their schedule in the lead into Rugby World Cup. So that's it for me. There's one more from you, Stephen.
Yeah, last one. It's pure gold. Striker's superb goal, bags vital point for Ireland. Again, McGoldrick's great header against Switzerland last night, getting this to draw. And in the bottom here, it's all our focus on Scotland, admits Farrell, which is Andy Farrell is challenged Ireland to lay down a marker against Wales tomorrow afternoon in the last game before the World Cup.
Do you watch much rugby?
I like it, but yeah, the World Cup's going to be on. I'll watch it. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Like, I mean, how can you support Ireland when they play in any sport?
Yeah. They're in the tough spot that they're in the minute. Is that sort of like from a momentum point of view, and like actually O'Gara was making the point today that he normally it's all about the performance at this stage, right? Like, but he's saying the result. Actually, it's the only thing that matters.
It's usually the last few times I've watched Rugby World Cup, we've gone into it probably doing quite well, and then in the World Cup it's not finished up as well as we would have liked, whereas at the moment we seem to be a little bit
we're trying deliberately
we're opposite the way around. We're trying to go in not too great and then perform at the
we're opened up.
We're opened up. Exactly. We're just trying to give people a false sense of security, go in and think, Ireland aren't as good as what they were, and then bang, that's it. So
it's a good tactic, and I'm sure that's exactly what they're thinking.
That's exactly what.
I'm loving all this controlled rope up that we're.
That phrase has been used way too much this morning.
Right, that'll be the last time. A couple of back pages from the UK for you. Double trouble. This is the Ashes. Well, shambolic. England drop a clanger. Smith smashes 211. He missed one of the tests, and he's still up at some unbelievable total for the series. That's the back page of one of those UK newspapers for you. The Daily Mail in the UK, meanwhile, battered. It's the same Daily Mirror. Oh, good point. Same point there about Steve Smith.
Feud for thought at the top. Eoin versus Sheahan really becoming the undercard of this week. Keane versus Fergie has taken over, naturally.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. Loads of people saying they should get both of them in the ring and have it as Eddie Hearn would promote it quite well, they said.
Or John Walters versus Roy Keane.
It was John Walters versus Roy, and then it was like Shearer versus Eoin, which I think is a bit of a mismatch.
No, it's a fair point. I can't believe it took me a half a second to consider why it was a mismatch. That's a very fair point, yeah. John Walters or Roy Keane in a charity box off. Who wins?
Walters.
There's only one winner, isn't it?
Walters, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I think you probably would have to kill Roy to stop him from like that quote was from Mick McCarthy. I think Roy is that type of person. You'd actually have to kill him to stop him keep coming, but you would think Johnny would be too strong.
Bite your ankles and stuff like that.
Yeah, he would do everything, I think, yeah.
The Irish news for you as we wrap up in the paper. Solid goal finish. Late McGoldrick header rescues a draw for the Irish. That's the Irish News back page for you this morning. So that is where we're at on all the newspapers for you at just gone 10 to 8 on this Friday morning. We've plenty for you coming up over the nenext while, and we're going to talk a little later as well to Arthur O'D. Our own Arthur O'D has got an interview with Red Oak Murphy, who's a Sligo young Sligo player who turned his back on the chance to play professional sport in Australia, and it turns out he just didn't like AFL. So we're going to talk to Arthur a little bit later on that, and exclusive as well on offtheball.com last night with the news that Kieran Donaghy has taken, I don't know if they're quite his first tentative steps into management, given his coaching role last year with in the Galway setup as well, but he's involved with the managerial setup at IT Tralee. This is big news.
It is, yeah. They've assembled quite a team as well in recent years. It was quite a coup, I thought, in terms of them getting David Clifford to come to the college, because they really haven't had an amazing team, a team worth challenging the big guns since the Jim McGuinness era when they went on to win the Sigerson Cup. So they've got players like him. They've got Darren Moynihan, I think, plays for them at the moment as well, certainly playing last year's Sigerson Cup. Then you've got a pretty good managerial team in Aidan O'Mahony and Kieran Donaghy going in as well. So it's exciting times for them. It's exciting times for Kieran Donaghy as well, because you get to work with top level players in kind of a very high intensity bursts at a certain point of the year, because they're going to be with their clubs, they're going to be with their counties even for certain points, but you'd imagine January, February into the Sigerson Cup, it's a very intense 6 to 8 week period, and I don't know, maybe that's the perfect way to get into management at the start.
Yeah, all right, here he is, Kieran Donaghy, talking about that new role with Tralee IT.
I suppose the college contacted me probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now at this stage to just see if I'd be interested and if it'd be something that I'd be able to do. So yeah, it was more about finding out the schedule and to see if it tied in with my commitments with Stacks and the basketball commitments over the winter and the schedules and the timings and stuff, and we're all okay. So once that was okay, then I just went to the boss of PST Sport and said it to him and said, look, is this okay? And he was all for it. He knows it's a kind of an avenue I want to explore and stuff, and I got a taste of it with Galway last year, and obviously now to get a chance with Tralee as well was and the facilities up there are unbelievable. So there's hydro pools and it's a brand new facility up there, so it's state of the art. I'm looking forward to getting in there, and Liam, who I'm going in as joint manager, who's been there with the last few years. So looking forward to kind of getting in there, and we have Aidan O'Mahony on board as well as a selector, and he'll be working obviously very close with the defenders as well. So there's a good squad there, and obviously it's exciting to get stuck into it now in the coming weeks.
Yeah, Kieran Donaghy there, and his thoughts having joined that managerial ticket at Tralee IT, so exciting times ahead, and some interesting players and high profile players, as we've been mentioning, that they're going to have to work with as well. One piece that was jumping out that we just wanted to touch on before we move on to talk to Stephen about the football, which we'll do in just a few minutes' time, is the fact that Gerlach Nahan, generally there's some good stuff on.
Yeah, his column in the Irish Daily Star is always good value, and today he's talking about the Clare management team. So Jerry O'Connor having left the Clare Hurlers this week, Donald Maloney looks like he's going to stay on, and Gerlach Nahan's headline is, things have just become septic in Clare. It's not the first time he stuck the boot into Clare. Just before we get into it, he does say that he has no axe to grind. He says, I don't want to be part of any future management or review group. I'm looking on from the outside as a Clare supporter. So that is the only interest here from Gerlach Nahan. He's not trying to get the job or anything. Like he says, you go into the archives and you'll find articles stating that both Clare and the Dublin footballers who go on to dominate this decade. Dublin did their bit, but Clare have done nothing since 2013, which I think is a bit of an unfair comparison, that you're comparing the absolute behemoth that is the Dublin footballers with the Clare Hurlers, coming off the back of one of the most dominant teams that the sport has ever seen, the most dominant team that the sport has ever seen, with a resurgent Tipperary as well, who just won the All-Ireland in 2010, with Galway, who were coming good. I think to say that Clare were going to be put into the same bracket as the Dublin footballers is an absolutely outrageous statement, and using that as a stick to be Clare with is completely and utterly unfair. He does say that they're the most talented generation of hurlers the county has ever seen, and this has been squandered. Now, he would know a lot more than I have in terms of the talents of the players, so I accept that point. You take him at face value for that. And then he gets into his good old friends, Davy Fitzgerald. He says, to me, the problem lies with the Fitzgeralds, Pat and Davy. Pat has been the main man in the county board for a long, long time, and he's done plenty of good work in the past and is still doing good things. But I think he's been there too long and has too much power. Change is always both good and necessary. Many within the county feel that Davy will be back after next year's championship for a second stint as manager. Would that be a good thing? I don't think so. Davy has done very well with Waterford, Clare and Wexford, but a new voice and a new approach is needed. So he's preaching caution about the possibility of Davy coming back in. There's interesting quotes here about Anthony Daly and Brian Lohan, because there has been some rumour in the past that Dalo and Lohan would join up together to form a managerial super team. He says they'd have the right mix to get the best players available. Daly should have forced the county board to make the decision between him and Maloney O'Connor at the time when they were appointed. That was the time to break the Fitzgerald's power, he says. I have huge time for Dalo, but I'd blame him too. He should have pushed this through. If he'd taken on the board, I'm certain Daly would have got the job. So really it seems that the problem with Clare hurling is in the immediate aftermath of them winning this great All-Ireland in 2013. Loch Nahan believes clearly that maybe Davy wasn't the right man to continue post that. I know he stayed on for a little bit after that. Things got particularly poisonous in the background for Davy. It certainly seems to me that he didn't support O'Connor and Maloney taking up the immediate succession after Davy Fitzgerald, but then he thinks Anthony Daly's also at fault for not challenging the county board a little bit harder when it came to this. So it's a strong old column once again from a pundit again this week, and this time it's Gerlach Nahan. But I think putting them in the same bracket as Dublin and calling their failings as like saying that Dublin winning no All-Ireland since 2013 is the same as Clare winning no All-Ireland since 2013. It's just ridiculous. Obviously Dublin haven't done that. They've gone on to dominate the game, so they have held up their end of the bargain.
The first part could be true, obviously, in terms of the structures that are there and whatever stagnation, I suppose, and they've like shipped a couple of extremely heavy defeats in Munster this year, and that's, I'm sure, feeding into all of that as well. So whether that's just, I mean, it does seem as if, particularly given the nature of the defeats, that there's something more significant at play, that like potentially whatever it was, like double scores against Limerick and whatever. But they I mean, a change of management obviously helped these sort of things, but it doesn't seem like this is a sort of short-term fix.
No, but it's interesting. One of the points that perhaps he does touch on that could be one that a lot of counties could learn from is the idea of the same voice on, and like Stephen, you may relate to this a little bit. Like, he talks about Maloney and O'Connor, and he says that they've been working with the likes of Podge Collins, Tony Kelly and Colm Galvin since they were under 14s. They're all 26, 27 now, and the fact that they're still listening to the same voices is disastrous. Clare Hurling is in a bad place, he finishes the column with. That he clearly sees these guys as people who have a lot to contribute to Clare Hurling, just not as senior managers. And I guess if you're hearing the same voice for 12 years, I guess that there is a point in that at certain times as well, that sometimes a new voice is needed, and that new voice to a lot of those players was Davy Fitzgerald for a while, and maybe that's why they won that All-Ireland. Like, I accept it's quite harsh, but is there truth in that?
It depends on the level of success they're having. Like, you look at Alex Ferguson, Manchester United. They not to make a comparison, but like, he was there for how long, and there was no need for a new voice, and since there's been a new voice, they've gone down. Opposite Arsenal, Wenger was there for so long, and they were just gradually starting to stagnate under him, and they needed a new voice to change things. So there's a point to be made on both sides of it, realistically. So sometimes a change can benefit them, sometimes the same person that knows the ins and outs can benefit as well. So it just all depends on the group of players and who they respond best to. Yeah, it's not really, for me, reading that and listening to what you're saying, so much to do with the person that's there rather than the level of success they're having at any given time. Like, if everything's working out fine, then they'll stay. It doesn't matter if they're there for 25 years. Exactly. But like, if it's gone to shit, then obviously you've got to get them out of there. So yeah, I think as well, it's not like a senior manager just being there from the midpoint of your career to the end of your career. This is people in the middle of their teenage years being coached, developed and learning at an elite level under these two guys, and then a couple of years later they're back under the same manager at senior level and stuff. So they've gone through quite a formative period, and then at the very height of their success as well, they're also back under these guys as well. So they're not learning more from someone else, you think? And so if they've learned enough from these guys at a young age, when they go into the senior level, fresh ideas might be benefit them and bring them on as players as well. Yeah,
like, that's certainly the point that Loughnane is making. But yeah, Clare Hurling in a bad place is what he's saying. So I'm surprised that we will have Maloney hanging on there, to be honest. I thought that the two of them would have gone, but it's going to be very, very interesting to see how they start next year, because I thought it was going to be a good old year for Clare this year after coming so close to getting to an All-Ireland final last year. Yeah, I can see it from a player's point of view how difficult it is, right? That like what point or what time of your career, what section of your career is a good time to have a bad manager? Like, none, essentially. True, right? None, if you're 18, there's no nuance around 18 to 21, you're like, geez, these are real formative years, and I've just wasted them now under this guy. If you're pushing on a little bit more, it's like, Jesus, I've only got a very short time here. I can't be wasting time with some schmuck, and that's the difficulty. And particularly with we've seen it in GAA a little bit more over the last few years, where I think players have started cotton on to a lot of that, where there can be a heave against the manager at some point, where it's generally the players that are playing well and teams that are going well, everything is happy in the valley, regardless of, it might not be like on your point, it might not be sort of, the manager might not be an absolute genius, the tactics might not be absolutely fantastic, but things are working, so everybody muddles along with it. The one thing though that comes to mind is, if Ger Loughnane is going to go into the Irish Daily Star and compare Clare with Dublin footballers, he needs to be consistent in that. Who was Jack McCaffrey's manager at under 21 level? Like, who was one of the great under 21 managers that Dublin have had this decade? Jim Gavin. And Jim Gavin has done that in senior level. So if you're going to compare them in terms of their failings to Dublin, like, look at what Dublin have done well. They've actually had a consistent voice from underage level through to senior level. So don't go and criticise Donald Maloney and Jerry O'Connor for just being around and having success with underage level. Like, they had similar levels of success as Jim Gavin did at underage level, and they stepped up to the senior job. So, like, you can look at it both ways. I can see the point he's making. Too many of the same voices is never a good thing. But at the same time, you can't really blame the Clare County Board for giving these lads a job.
That's a very unfair comparison.
The thing is that when you look at it as well, like again, I'm just going to bring it back to football, but when you look at what England have done with Gareth Southgate, 21s and bringing them in, and what Ireland are doing with Stephen Kenny, 21s and bringing them to the level, they're looking them to encourage these younger players, get to know them, and then hopefully bring them up to the senior level. And the fact that they know the ins and outs, they can get the best out of them. So that's a lot of what was happening in Dublin.
What you're saying is the Republic of Ireland are going to be dominant.
Soccer for the
Dogs have done. I can 100% get on board with this. It's just a positive, real positive show this morning, which is exactly where we want to be. Right, we're going to talk football for much of the next hour. Stephen's going to stay with us. Reaction from the Irish camp last night as well. Plenty of that coming your way. And Kevin Kilbane is going to join us a little bit later as well. There's a pretty important rugby match, obviously, taking place tomorrow. Ireland's build-up for the Rugby World Cup continues at the Aviva Stadium. A full-strength Wales are in town, so it'll be a full-blooded affair. And Alan Quinlan is going to give us his thoughts in about 25 minutes or thereabouts. We're going to give you the chance as well to win a pair of premium tickets to tomorrow's game, all with thanks to the RFU Charitable Trust. Since 1978, the RFU Charitable Trust has worked tirelessly to support severely injured rugby players in their everyday lives. And if you'd like to donate, just head along to rfucharitabletrust.com. To win a pair of those premium tickets this morning to Ireland against Wales, firstly, what you got to do is share the hashtag OTBAM wherever you're watching or listening to the show this morning. And secondly, name one of Ireland's try scorers from the Grand Slam win against Wales in 2009. So simple as that. And as I said, head along to rfucharitabletrust.com for much more details on all of that. It is 8:05 on this Friday morning. It's OTB AM. We're back with more reaction to Ireland-Switzerland next.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online, and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts is back at the City West Convention Centre, Dublin from the 6th to the 12th of October. See 32 of the biggest darting stars on the planet, including world number 1 Michael van Gerwen, former Grand Prix champion Darrell Gurney, plus fan favourite Peter Wright. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.ie and search darts. The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts at City West. Game on.
OTB AM.
James, did you play through an illness there tonight? You sound like you're a little bit croaky.
Look, you play as players. I don't think you ever go out there 100% fit. But yeah, look, felt a little bit croaky this morning or whatever. But nah, I'm grand. You know, it's not the first time that's happened. And yeah, look, we cracked on and we got the point, and that's all that matters.
There's a couple of moments when the referee got involved and the players came together, and you particularly looked like you weren't going to back down with the Swiss players. Were you kind of like intent on laying down a marker to them there?
Yeah, look, sometimes, you know, they get in and around the referee and try to referee the game at times, and you know, it's important to have a player in there that makes sure, you know, we're not just going to, you know, let them try and dictate how the ref manages the game. So it's all tactics and all part of the game.
You had a good relationship there with Callum Robinson now on that right hand side this evening.
Yeah, look, I played with him last time we were in as well, and obviously he's doing great at the minute at club level, and you know, I just keep taking over and keep trying to do what I can, and you know, could have been better times tonight, but overall felt okay, and as I said, a point is a good result.
How important is it for David McGoldrick to get his first international goal as well? Did you speak to him afterwards?
Yeah, delighted for him, absolutely delighted for him. He works so hard for the team, as you can see tonight, and in training, anytime we meet up, he's one of the best players every day, and we know he's got that quality, and that goal there will do him the world of good, and as I said, he's a great lad, so we're all delighted for him.
Seamus Coleman's flying it, isn't he? Like, there's been such an amount of conversation even over the last year about Matt Doherty and whether he could get his way into the team and all that, but he's flying it now in a way that question is beginning to dissipate with every game.
I always felt that Matt would push him, but I never felt that Seamus would lose his place to Matt. I think Seamus is a better right back than Matt, and if we're going to play 4-4-2, then that's where, if we change it like we did yesterday to a 3-5-2, then that's when your argument's coming from Matt playing as a wing back, because that's what he plays for his club, and Seamus would probably naturally go back into the centre the way Stevens did yesterday. You'd see Stevens further forward and Seamus would be the third centre back, but yeah, no, you just got to, his attitude, the way he works, his level of commitment to his role and how he's played, and he took a lot of criticism early last season for Everton. He was getting a lot of stick, and there's questions of him going. Everton signed the full-back this year, he was probably going to come in and push him, but he started off the season really brightly, looks strong, looks fit, has really got over those injuries he's had, and he's a player we need to perform for us. We need him on the pitch. He's our captain and he's a leader, and he does it by example week in, week out.
Yeah, the back four is obviously has been pretty solid right throughout under Mick McCarthy so far. I saw John Fallon in the Examiner this morning saying that 9 players have started all 5 qualifiers, including that back four. Obviously that will change the next game with Stevens going out, but I know the shape was something that you wanted to talk to, so we start out with that 4-5-1 with Coleman, Duffy, Keogh and Stevens across the back. So just explain to us then, 20 minutes before half time we tweak it up.
So about 20 minutes before half time, Mick all of a sudden changed it, so Duffy and Keogh changed. Stevens came in as the left side centre back. Stevens came in as the left side centre back. McLean went to left wing back, and Seamus was right wing back. So we ended up having a 3-5-2, and Robinson kind of came in behind McGoldrick, which was encouraging to see that Mick all of a sudden just decided, listen, we're not dealing with them as well as we should be, and then he just went toe to toe with them. He changed our shape to basically match theirs, and it worked for spells, and we caused them a few problems. We had a couple of chances with McGoldrick, and then towards the end of the game we reverted back to what we started out with. But to see Mick evolving and not just be this one-dimensional manager and just a 4-4-2, which is what he would have been known for, to look at a game, analyse as it's going, change the shape throughout as it's going, and for the players to straight away take it on and take it on board, and it shows that they must be working on stuff like that. And then the second half, when we were chasing the game, he reverted to a 4-4-2 to get the 2 strikers further up the pitch and get McGoldrick into the box, which is where he ended up scoring the header from. So they're encouraging signs that we have a manager that's capable of assessing the game, realising it's working, it's not working, and then change it in an instant. And then he's obviously working hard enough with the players for them to know that this could happen at some point. It's not just off the cuff, we're going to try this, and if it works, you can tell it's probably been worked on.
So, and obviously it wasn't working to the level that he thought actually, because in the second half then we revert back to where we were. So is that just a case of, like, it was working all right, and maybe it got Switzerland working or guessing in a way that they hadn't done before, now we'll just go back to where we were? Or, like, what's your take?
I think he possibly did it with just to get toe to toe to them, because they were causing us problems. But then when it happened, the 2 centre backs then started coming out the ball slightly more, which I'm not too sure. I think that's probably why he initially did it, because he wanted to have the 2 up against them, but it didn't work. So then when he went back to the 4-5-1, it still didn't stop the centre backs, but it was probably something that the lads were more comfortable with. It's just nice to see us changing our shape and not be rigid, and be able to adapt to scenarios and if changes. Like Switzerland were very much, that was their formation, and they stuck to it, and they play it very well, and they keep the ball very well. We just it was nice just to see us change.
If everybody's fit and Mick McCarthy wants to proceed with that change in formation for the next game, who are you starting? Because John Egan can play in that system and Matt Doherty can play in that system quite well.
Well, both of those players played at a club level. Egan plays the central role for Sheffield United, but I spoke about it on the show before, Sheffield United played very differently to most of the teams, with the 2 other centre backs bombing forward like full back. So that's not what John would be used to. If we were doing it, we would be having it as a 3, and a lot of the time it's going to be a 5. The 2 fullbacks will be back in, so you're creating a 5 at the back to stop any. So you're not just having 3. You're creating a situation where you're overloading the back so that we have more numbers in there to deal with a threat. So it can be a very defensive shape at times if he wants it to be. So you would think Mick's idea would be Seamus in, Stevens on the left, which is his natural position, the left wing back, and then Matt on the right. But that's only if Matt's on the pitch. If Matt's not on the pitch, you can't do that.
Yeah, sure.
If you're going to start again like that, that's one thing. But if Matt's not on the pitch, then it's going to have to be Stevens coming in and Seamus going high, or Seamus coming in and Stevens going high. But James McLean makes for the more natural left-sided full-back. He has that, I suppose, level of responsibility where he tracks back, and so he naturally has a wing back in him, sort of.
It almost feels like that is his best position.
Yeah, it would be his best position, yeah. Easily, that would be James McLean's best position, because going forward and the attacking threat, he's very one-dimensional. He gets the ball out of his feet and he puts crosses in. That's what he wants to do. And if you're playing against him, you know he's going to want to go down the outside and cross it. As a wing back, you're running into it. You're like Matt Doherty, you run on space. You don't really have to take players on as much. You're coming later onto the ball and you're just running forward. And if you have that willingness to run and you can make clever runs and run inside sometimes, then you'll find yourself in more space and time in the ball, which would benefit James, I think.
So much made as well about the experience of the team, or the amount of football I suppose that a lot of them have played, and it really, like, going through it last night, looking at that starting 11, like, so many of them have been playing every game for their club at league level, and they're the type of players then to get rested for the EFL Cup. But it's really in that midfield area when you break it down, with Horan started one of Villa's 4 Premier League games. He had 80 minutes there and 20 minutes off the bench in another one, and played 90 minutes in the EFL Cup against Crewe. You've Whelan, who's obviously a late comer to Hearts and has started 2 games there, and you've Hendrick, who's got 4 minutes of Premier League for the season off the bench against Wolves, and 90 minutes in the EFL Cup against Sunderland last week. So with that in mind, how concerned, I suppose, are you about looking at that midfield last night and how overrun we were at times? You mentioned yourself a bit earlier how easily they cut through us at times.
Yeah, it is a problem area for him, because if those players are not going to get game time, and he's talked about it so much that, like, Shane Long's not in the squad because he wasn't getting game time. He wants players that are playing week in, week out, but they're the 3 he's going to start, I think, regardless of whether they're playing up, because I think they feel they're his best option, especially if we're playing against a better team. We'll probably revert back to not having a 3 midfield when we play against lesser opposition, like we did against Gibraltar. But when we're playing against a good side, he wants to have the whole midfield player and the 2 beside him. And it is a concern, because if they're not getting game time, they're not playing for clubs. Glenn will play. You would think Glenn will play, so he's going to get more game time. He's obviously just started later than we would have expected, so you would think he's going to play week in, week out for Hearts. It's Conor Horan and Jeff that are going to be limits for game time this season. Conor's going to have to work hard to get a place in the Aston Villa team. He's warranted it. He did really well from last year, and the manager will give him chances. Jeff, on the other hand, is going to have to fight extremely hard to get into the Burnley side, because he's been in and out at times, and I don't think he's performed at a level that's been consistent in what Dyche wants from him. So that it's difficult, and the longer this goes on, and the better teams we play against, their midfield are extremely strong. They keep the ball so well. Denmark and Switzerland, they're so accomplished in there, and they find passes. They're driving forward the ball, and if we don't have the lads in there that are playing every week and are as physically fit as what you can be, then it could be an issue for us.
You mentioned Mick's adaptability earlier on, but how can he stand over that midfield, given how overrun they were last night, in terms of his team selection, if he is going to stick with it down the track?
Well, in one sense, he's going, right, you're only playing if you're playing for your club, and then the midfield 3 is picking itself. Now everybody would have put them 3s down as playing. No one would have picked anybody else, because you know that's who Mick prefers. So that's his decision. He's standing by it. Who else do we play in there? That's the question. James McCarthy, he's not playing, and Roy. I know Roy very well. Roy likes to play the same team every week. So if James gets into the team and does well, he'll stay in it and he'll play every week. He needs to get himself into that team, and that's going to be the hard part for him with all the injuries he's had. And obviously he's moved now to get game time. If he can play, that will be a benefit. That will be huge for us. Who else in there is? I don't know who else you pick. Brown. It's a difficult one. I'm not too sure who else you pick, but the experience that those have had, that should probably see them through the games, in a sense of they may not be playing as much, but they've done it before, so they understand the roles, and that's why Mick feels comfortable in playing them, even though they're not playing. But it is a predicament, and it's something that Mick can't fix. He can't go and play them for their clubs. He can't go and make them play, so it's an issue that he's going to have to just deal with and assess them when they come in and train, and see if he feels like they're at the level he thinks they're at to be able to play in these games.
Yeah, all right, we're going to get some reaction from after the game last night. Richard Keogh coming up, and first Conor Horan with Stephen Doyle after the draw.
Had a really good spell just before half time, and again when he came back out for the start of the second half, was that something Mick kind of said to you, just going to keep doing what you were doing?
Yeah, we just wanted to keep going and keep giving our all, and see what we could kind of muster up, you know. Obviously they went up 1-0, like I said, we showed a bit of character to come back and get a good draw.
What do you think of that 4-2-3-1 formation you played in tonight? Is that best suited to this Irish team?
I'm not sure. Listen, that's up to the gaffer to decide. We just set up the best way possible against this Swiss side, because we, like I said, we knew they'd have a lot of possession. So you know, maybe we needed that little bit more protection tonight.
It seemed like the stadium got really deflated when Switzerland scored, but you know, it seemed to really obviously puts a positive spin at getting that equaliser. Do you think it really changed the mood in the dressing room with the players as well?
Yeah, of course. You know, coming back to grab that goal is going to give that little bit of buzz to everyone. You know, the fans, the dressing room, everyone. So you know, we'll take it.
Just as well, do you think Callum Robinson, I saw he could have set you up maybe for a shot outside the box? You got a little bit ratty about that one.
Yeah, maybe so. Listen, I like having a couple of shots from outside the box, but it wasn't to beat tonight, but we'll take the point anyway.
Richard, did you expect them to play 2 men up front? They usually go with just the one.
Yeah, no, we thought they might have played obviously like kind of 3 at the back with a diamond in midfield, and they kind of push the 7 up front, and like I say, it's when you got 2 on the pitch, obviously you got to be on the ball, but like I said, there's going to be times when you're under pressure a lot, but I thought we defended our box really well, me and Duss, and just not us but the whole team, and like I say, I thought it was a massive point, isn't it?
So when you see that's happening on the pitch, does Mick shout on instructions? Or
we changed it a couple of times out there just to try and get a foothold back in the game, and I think you've got to be willing to adapt. You've got a group that can adapt to different ways, and we worked all through that in training all week. Like you say, we tweaked a few things, and we just wanted to try and get a bit more of a foothold in the game, and like you say, I thought we countered them pretty well at times, and like I said before, it's going to be when you play against a team with good quality, like I say, you have to suffer, and I thought we suffered, but in the end it was all worth it because we got the point.
Jesus, those eyebrows are impressive, aren't they? They're like each one like a football pitch. Richard Keogh and Duffy, obviously the centre-back partnership has become like a real mainstay of that team, like almost the heartbeat of the team in a lot of ways. Like, he's a guy who's obviously 33. You're probably looking at knocking another 12-18 months out of him, and you assume then that maybe John Egan is like one of these young pups that's coming in that's going to displace him.
Well, what's great is John's playing. He's playing for his club. They're in the Premiership. He's getting some great experience. Richard obviously can't go on forever, but he's still playing week in, week out for Derby. He's performing at a high level. Derby are a team they're going to push for promotion again this season. So, and he's done that for countless years. So for him, he's just going to keep going. I don't think he'll stop until he has to, really. But it's nice to know that we have a reserve there that is playing week out and that can step into and take up the mantle, and there's someone in the background ready to come in, because it's always a worry when you have players that are getting towards the end of their career but you don't see anybody else that can fill that void. But we do have that at the moment, which is nice.
Yeah. Is this just, in an overall sense, is this just us now? Is this the personality of our team that we, like, against, and Switzerland are obviously a decent team, like against the better teams, that it's just a case of, like Eoin was saying earlier on about the rope-a-dope aspect of, we'll invite you on and we'll accept that you're going to overrun us for large parts of the game. We'll need to ride our luck a bit. We'll need some of those last gasp challenges, and we'll try and catch you on the break later on. Do we just have to accept that that's kind of the personality of this team now?
I think probably from watching as a spectator or as a pundit, we kind of have to accept it. As a player or as your manager, you don't want to accept that. You want to think that you can go into a game and you have a realistic chance of winning, and that you're going out there confidently feeling like you can beat this team. I don't think any manager or like I said, Mick definitely wouldn't be sending his team out there to go for a draw. He'd be saying, listen, you're going to go and you're going to try and beat these, and we're going to try and press them high up the pitch. It's just what we have at our disposal at the moment, and the way we are, we've improved, and it's been drastic in comparison to the last campaign, just for the sense of the good vibes around the place, the atmosphere. Everybody seems to be a lot happier with the way things are. But when it comes to these big teams, and at the moment Switzerland and Denmark are very good sides, but they're better teams in the world than these. So if you do get onto tournaments and you come against even better opposition, and like Switzerland have Shaqiri, excellent player, Xhaka, excellent player, Denmark have Eriksen, top player, but you've going to come against teams that have really, really good finishers, people that will score goals, and we can't give up the chances we've given. Even though defensively we've looked solid and we've been good, and Randolph always comes up with a good save or two, when teams play intricate football around us, it's usually a last-ditch tackle, and we need to try and prevent the teams getting into those positions. Like last night, it was the centre-back playing 3 or 4 1-2s and puts the ball into the goal. You don't see that often, and that we can't allow that to happen.
I noticed last night when you were in the last time we were chatting about Robbie Keane and how active he was in training sessions. He was involved in the warm-up last night in the bit of rondo, showing off a bit of skills. I'm still thinking, get the hell out of there. Like, just let the players at it.
Yeah, we had this discussion. It was about Lampard, I think it was.
Yeah, Lampard, and you were talking about Glenn Hoddle.
And Glenn Hoddle joining in, and like, again, Robbie's just at the game, and it's different for him because he's not the manager. So as the assistant, I think you have a bit more freedom to do that, to join in and have a bit of banter, and you're the link between the players and the manager. The manager, he has to have a relationship with you, but he doesn't have to have a real close relationship with you. He has to distance himself slightly, whereas Robbie's the intermediate. He's the one that brings them together, and he can join in and have that bit of cohesion and still feel like he's one of the lads to an extent, even though he still has to give them instruction. So a little bit less from Robbie's point of view because he's the assistant. If he was the manager, you'd be saying, no, get out of there and don't do it. But being the assistant, you kind of feel you can get away with it a bit more.
He's a better touch than Mick as well.
Yeah, and probably a lot of the players there he's playing as well.
Pádraig O'Brien was in touch on Facebook to say Johnny Five was a sound skin on our conversation about sound robots earlier today.
Good lad.
Short circuit.
Yeah.
Right, we have plenty more to come on the football a little bit later on, and as a reminder as well that from midday today, right across Off the Ball Sports Radio and on offtheball.com and on our YouTube channel, we're going to be broadcasting the full 3 hours from our sold-out Cadbury Roadshow at the Burgash Energy Theatre on Wednesday night with Roy Keane and Gary Neville. We're going to have a little look at some of it now, but from 12 o'clock you're going to hear both the lads talking about the treble season, the culture at Manchester United during the 90s, and much, much more. There really was some in-depth, fascinating, interesting chat outside of the major headlines that were made from the night on Wednesday. First of all, though, here is one of those headlines. Here's what happened when Roy Keane got into his relationship with John Walters.
Honestly, that is nonsense. This is the danger of the game. Don't get me started on John. I tell you, I've worked with John Walters. Talks a good game. Imagine if he had a good CV. Imagine if he won a trophy.
Well, he went on to have a good career as a professional.
Sorry?
He went on to have a good career as a professional.
He done okay. And the games he was fit for with Ireland, he done well, I have to say. But towards the end, when players are turning up and creating stuff, do me a favour. So you're defending John? You know John well?
Have you worked with him?
John
has done some work with us, yeah.
Have you? I bet he has, yeah.
But as you say, like you talk about that Bosnia night. John Walters was the one who scored the goals.
Well, yeah. How many years ago was that? So is he going to live off that? Like a certain player scored against Holland. You live off that for the next 20, 30 years. Listen, I know all about John Walters. I know all about him.
Are you going to tell us?
Bluffer. Again, talks a good game. And then there's the circuit, of course. There's all the circuit stuff. Goes on the TV, how harshly he was treated by me. He's crying on the TV, family situation. He's the only one who's... Don't do me a favour. Not kick the ball for Burnley for 2 or 3 years. I used to be driving the train and be on the radio. You know what I mean? Why don't you lay low for a while? Lay low, take it easy.
Sorry.
Look at his medals. Oh, that wouldn't take long, yeah.
Yeah, the full piece will be aired on OTB Sports Radio and across all the usual off-the-ball channels from midday today, so do head along to check it out. He's incredibly charismatic, entertaining, biting at times character who you had a little bit of experience of as a player. There was a small bit of an overlap.
Yeah, I came into the squad when Brian Kerr was manager and Roy had come back, so my first introduction was, even though I didn't actually get a cap, which was disappointing, but I was in the squad from about 2004, I think, when I was playing for Tottenham at the time, and I came in and Roy was back in, so I came in and I trained with him, and as a young player coming in and Roy Keane is there and you're just kind of in awe and you're watching him, and it was, even when you're doing little drills, I was making sure, like, not that I wouldn't have been, but I'd make sure I got around the cone because I wouldn't want him to think I wasn't doing things right and stuff, and he had a aura around him and a personality, and he's a fantastic footballer. Like, what he's done in the game is outstanding, and on the pitch he was just a born leader. And then obviously I've gone on to work with him as a manager as well, because in the Irish setup, when him and Martin took over, I was in the squad for the first year or so of their reign, and it was different in that sense. It was a lot of friendlies we played, so I didn't get the in-depth sort of analysis. I didn't get to see what they really did when it comes to qualifiers. But from my own personal experiences with him, he's extremely engaging. If you met him, he's very personable. He's funny. It's very different to what you get to know. So when you're with him one-on-one, Roy's a different person to what you see there, and you're kind of going, oh well. But then all of a sudden there's something that snaps, and that's when the Roy comes out that you're kind of like, whoa, is this the same person I'm speaking to?
Do you get to see much of that sort of dichotomy almost in it?
No, like I said, because the games we mostly played in were friendlies, there was 1 or 2 games we played against Portugal and we were disappointing. We performed well at parts of it, but then they ran in the second half. They ran over us. We gave a couple of good silly goals away, and it was before the World Cup. They were going on to do well. Ronaldo was in flying flow, but they were disappointed. And after the game, they told us about it. They picked out certain players. They said they should have done better. They expected more of them, and they were, they were right with the criticism, and they were harsh with it. And that was early on, so I think they were laying on the law slightly about what they expected from the team, and if we're going to progress as a team, and if we want to qualify for tournaments, even though we're playing against Portugal, we have to give a better account of ourselves, which they were right. But then when you watch that, that's disappointing.
And he kind of, like, he says that, like, that's his way and I'm not changing for anybody was one of the sort of expressions that he used. He also said, like, that he made a joke about, his the perception of Roy Keane, the manager in the dressing room, that I only kill 3 people every time I'm in there or whatever, that he's certainly something he's aware of, but at the same time, not something that he's at all willing to change.
No, I don't think he will. I don't think he's the type of person that's going to change. He's been the way he is for probably most of his career and his life, and I can't say, like I said, I don't know him well enough to say, I know Roy Keane and but you don't think he's going to change. He doesn't come across, he doesn't pull punches, he's not in any way sensitive about things. He just says it how he thinks it is, and sometimes he goes too far, and that's what happened in the roadshow. He went too far.
You would have liked a few more caps under the 2 lads, obviously.
Yeah, of course I would have. Yeah, I would have loved some more caps, and it would have been nice if they had brought me into the squad more and I was still playing. But that's you always expect it to end at some point. You probably don't expect it to end as abruptly as it did for me, but that's football, and you got a road. I can't be offended by it. I'm not going to hold a grudge against it. A lot of people do. A lot of people hold animosity towards the people that didn't play them and stuff. And as much as you could come out and say whatever you want to say and say it didn't happen, for me, I can't change that. I can't do anything about it. At the time I was trying to play as well as I could to get myself picked. They obviously didn't think I was good enough at the time, or wherever it was, and that was it. So you move on and you get on with it. For me now, in the career I'm in, you could go out and say whatever you want to say, but I just don't feel I need to hold grudges against people or say stuff. I feel like what I'm here to do is talk about football and talk about games and talk about the players and how they're performing, not about anything else off the pitch. So I'll just try and be as honest and as open as I can with what I say and what I do, and that's kind of been the way I've lived my whole life. So I wouldn't change that. Obviously I'm a different person to Roy though.
Yeah, that's I think there are very few in that category. The abruptness of it, is that just something that happens in football? Is that just accepted that's the way it is, or is there another way of doing it in your experience?
No, there could be other ways of doing it. You could have a phone call. You spent a long time in Ireland, like I had. I've been in the setup since I was 15. You'd think you'd get a phone call or say something, it'd be nice, but listen, it didn't happen, and that's the way it was, and I'm not going to cry about it. I'm a tough character. I've always been able to. I'm confident that what I did in my own career, and I'm happy with what I did, and other people might not be happy with it, they might not think it's good, but I'm proud of what I achieved, and I think that for myself, I don't need to have someone tell me something. I'm confident enough with my wife Helga. She was always there, and people like that would support me and tell me how well I've done, and tell me if I've done bad as well. But I don't need to be told by someone else or think it would have been nice, but it didn't happen. So that was it.
See, that's the interesting thing. That there's a number of things that kind of popped out to me during that interview that tells you a lot about Roy Keane, but one of them, and I know it's kind of down the list of priorities, is the kind of thing he says about Walters' medals, and wouldn't take you too long to count that. Like, you can talk about the personality of Roy Keane and how that might have no place in modern football and how no dressing room would respond well to that. But also there's something about that attitude of, unless you've got medals, you're not worth my time sort of snobbery about a certain class of player. Granted, that comes from a player who's so successful that it's kind of, you can be sympathetic to that worldview. But like as Nathan pointed out there, Jonathan Walters went on to have a good career. Just because you haven't won a Premier League doesn't mean you weren't part of the 0.001% of top players in your country or in Western Europe. Exactly. Exactly.
Well, it makes it an unbelievable career. Like if you've played in the Premiership for a long, sustained period of time, which Sean did, and you've captained your country, which John did at times. He wasn't the captain, but he did get to wear the armband. And you've scored goals and you've performed on the big stage and you've played in big tournaments, then yeah, you have had a good career. You may not have won the Champions League or you may not have won medals, so you can't put yourself in that elite bracket of the, like I said, the small percentage of players. But as it goes, you've had a good career, and it's, like I said, it's disappointing what was said, and you watch it and you're kind of going, oh, you're watching it through great teeth at times, and you're kind of covering your eyes thinking, is that what he said? And I think it goes over the line when it talks about family and stuff. I think that's something that should be discussed. There's no need for it. In what Roy has done in his career and how he's performed in the levy, he could probably say anything about anybody's footballing ability and get away with it because of what he did. So you kind of think, well, you know what? I wasn't as good as you. I didn't achieve what you achieved. So if you want to say I'm this or that as a player, you're entitled to your opinion. When you start talking about other things, that's when it becomes borderline on a bit of a vendetta or against somebody, and I think that pushes boundaries and it makes people not like it.
Yeah. All right, we're going to chat some rugby in just a few minutes' time ahead of that Ireland-Wales game tomorrow. First of all, a little bit more Roy Keane for you. He's pulling no punches here discussing Alex Ferguson's legacy at Manchester United.
And I tell you what, I was at the club when Brian Robson left. I was at the club when Steve Bruce left. Two brilliant servants for Man United, and I didn't like the way they were treated at the end. So people talk about Ferguson's man management. Don't be kidded on by all of it either. Yeah. Don't be kidded on by all that. And Ferguson came out afterwards going, well, I always done what was best for United, Manchester United. Nonsense. His son played for the club, won a league medal, Darren. Very lucky. His brother was chief scout for Man United for a long time. Hey, listen, I'm surprised his wife wasn't involved on the staff somewhere. Darren, his son, was at Preston one time. Darren loses his job. A couple of young players on loan for Man United. Guess what happens the next day? They're pulled out of Preston. Is that what's doing the best for Man United? Do me a favour.
In Pret a Manger this morning, I was so calm.
When did you last speak to Ferguson?
Not since then, obviously.
Not one conversation?
I think when he apologises to me, I probably will say hello to him, yeah. No interest in speaking to the man.
Nothing even over the past year, the ill health, made you think, maybe I'll just give him a call, maybe life's too short?
No. When he apologises to me, and David Gill. No problem.
Have we got another section?
Yeah, another short snippet for you from that show on Wednesday night. Just before we let you away, Stephen, obviously in terms of Ireland's prospects now in that group, we're 3 points clear, I think, of Denmark, who have a game in hand, 6 points clear then of the Swiss, who have 2 games in hand. A really good position. Your prediction on what's going to happen over the next few games? A couple of tough ones to come for us, obviously.
I think the Gibraltar, like, we have 6 points on the board from Gibraltar, which I think you almost just take off us, because you would think, you don't think you guaranteed everybody's going to get those points, so they don't really count, and that's no disrespect to Gibraltar, it's just the way it is. So the important one is going to be Switzerland and Denmark, but then Georgia, whether Georgia can take points off Switzerland and Denmark for us, because if we can perform, like going into that game, there was a worry about how good they were going to be, and everybody knows that they're close to being a good team and they're capable of causing an upset. So it's us getting a result against Georgia, hopefully getting points again against Denmark and Switzerland, but hopefully whether ourselves or Georgia can take points off the other two to give us that opportunity to push on, because that's what we're in a good stead. We've not slipped up. We're in a strong position. The 2 draws against the 2 bigger teams and the 2 better teams have allowed us to be in a position where we can still qualify, which is great. We just need to, those performance levels we've given, we need a big day and a big game. We need that Germany result. We need something that's going to push us over the edge to get us qualified, because those teams are capable of winning all their matches, and we need to be able to beat one of them, or for Georgia to come up and get a result. And that's the way I see it going, really.
Well, that's this weekend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Denmark go to Tbilisi this weekend. Like, that is, like, you talk about Shane Long's goal against Germany. The other part of that was Georgia doing us a favour against Scotland.
Exactly.
So we are hoping for probably a double whammy again, because I mean, it's not just the element of going unbeaten in the 4 games against the big 2. It's also going to Tbilisi ourselves and getting 3 points.
Exactly. That's going to be, like, it's a hard place to go. They're a difficult side to play against, and they've got some good players, and they perform well. So we need to win that game. We can't go there and draw that game. We need to win that game, because unless Denmark slip up against them, or Switzerland, that's a game that we have to think, right, that's a win, and then if they can take points off someone else, then that will give us a chance. But Denmark will go in there knowing that Georgia can cause them problems and can be a threat, and it's a difficult place, and they're going to have this pinpoint as a really important game for themselves as well.
To say 36 is the new 26?
I don't know, but it's just...
Happy birthday.
I know today. I know, thank you very much. Cheers. I know. I didn't even mention it. But yeah. Today, yeah.
We had a research team outside, practically Wikipedia.
Yeah. I was getting video messages from Hugo and Harlow, my wife there, saying happy birthday, singing to daddy, like, and I was like, before he goes to school.
You're like, forget this football nonsense.
I want to go home. I want to go home and play with the kids and say, 36 today, yeah, so yeah, nice. Well, what you do.
Feeling fresh. What's any big plans for the weekend?
I think my wife has some plans for me, so she always does. She always spoils me, which is nice. So yeah, Helga's just a beautiful girl. So yeah, great.
Class. Brilliant. Well, listen, happy birthday. Thanks very much for coming into us. Thanks a lot, Stephen Kelly, as always. I'm sure we'll hear more from Stephen over the next while. And we're going to talk to Kevin Kilbane too in about 20-25 minutes time as well, to get more reaction to that Ireland game last night. It's to rugby we're going next, though. Alan Quinlan's in studio with us. First of all, here's Rory Best on what's been going wrong with Ireland's line-out.
I think it's about confidence and about getting different people used to each other, and look, I think ultimately the line out is a game of confidence. You know, if you can get the first couple in and one and away, then everyone breathes a sigh of relief. And I think whenever you lose a couple, then everyone gets nervous, not right from the hooker right down the line, and that isn't where you want to be. And it's like a reflection of the game. I think if you play with the ball in hand and somebody knocks a couple on, then the whole team automatically gets a little bit nervous, and look, I think it's only natural. I think for this weekend it's important for us just to get a good run, to get those first couple of line out wins, and then, but ultimately if it doesn't go that way, we can't let it affect the rest of our game the way we did against England. You know, okay, we lost a few line outs against England, but I think what was most disappointing, because you can repair them reasonably easy, the most disappointing thing was how we then give up the next moment after that, the next moment. I think probably Atoje's try was probably the biggest example of that. You know, we lost the line out, and then we let them get the ball back, set a phase up, and then really score relatively easy under the post, because we just weren't focused on trying to win that next moment and try to get the upper hand back with our actions, and that was as disappointing as the line out not functioning.
Yeah, Ireland are going to sign off on our preparations for Rugby World Cup against Wales at the Aviva Stadium tomorrow. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Good morning, how are you?
Are we mad to be going into this with fully stacked teams, pretty much fully stacked teams on both sides, or with the way our group is lined up, is this the perfect preparation?
It's the right thing to do, I think, and that was always the plan with the start of any of these warm-ups. I think obviously all the different countries and teams are mixing and matching a bit, but the way this game sits, and for Ireland and for Wales, you know, Warren Gatland has said it as well, the next time they put on the jersey is they're up and running. And for Ireland, it's a tough start, you know. I've been at World Cups before where you've kind of been able to ease yourself in a little bit, even though 2007 we had Namibia and Georgia, and that was the perception that we could ease our way in. So maybe it's a good thing that we're starting starting with a tough game, and that's the kind of pivotal game against Scotland. So Johnny Sexton needs game time, Keith Earls does. The back row's still undecided about what will happen there. So there's still, it's with the squad being picked now, it's down to who's going to start that game against Scotland, and that's on Sunday 2 weeks. So they've got to go fully locked and loaded as best they can. You could argue there's going to be still 2 or 3 changes in that side, but it's nearly as strong as we could go.
It's unusual though, isn't it? Like you talk about looking at the pool and whether or not it's the right thing to go kind of full bore in this game, to kind of get up for 2 games and have Samoa and Russia and then get up for a quarter-final all going well. Like I think that Japan game is on the 28th of September and then a potential quarter-final is on the 19th or 20th of October. Like that is a huge gap between 2 huge games.
2 big games, but I think if it works out and they play really well, it'll be perfect scenario.
Sure.
Like in 03, I'll give you an example. In 03, we started with Romania and Namibia with 2 big wins. Everybody in the squad played. The feel-good factor was brilliant, and we went on then and beat Argentina. Do you remember that game, Argentina, where certain fella
over your shoulder
saved Irish rugby? Yeah, thanks, Adrian.
I've heard that before, Connie.
I'll have Roy Keane giving out about me dining out in that now for nearly 20 years. What he was talking about the
dine away, Quinny.
The player that scored against
McAteer dine away as well.
He's dead right to dine out in it. Jesus, if I scored a goal against Holland, I'd dine out in it forever as well. It was a very important goal, let me say, and as was my try that time. Yeah. So that scenario happened where we kind of could build, and everyone gets to play, and there's no long faces going around the corridors that I'm not going to be played, and then Ireland, after that, very unluckily lost to Australia. I think Humps had a drop goal or a penalty to possibly win it, and then obviously the quarterfinals against France ended up being very disappointing. But 07 then was the same scenario where you've perceived 2 weaker sides in the group, and you know there was probably a lot more going on than at that World Cup to assess that one. I can't remember 2011. Who did Ireland start with? They played Australia early on in it anyway. I don't think it was the first
game,
one.
is it?
Yeah, actually, it was USA first. I think it was Australia second, and that Australian win in Auckland was incredible. And we obviously went out in the quarterfinals. I think we played Russia then, and who else was in our group?
Italy.
And Italy. That was it. We played them down at Dunedin. That's the kind of order it went in. So, 2015, Argentina had the luxury of resting their players. I think they played Georgia the week before we played them, and they were able to have that rest period. So what you're saying there is, it's a long time between big game, that type of intensity and that kind of pressure. It's
not all the way up in terms of your peaking.
Yeah, so the other side for the group is maybe they can build a bit of momentum and a bit of confidence and self-belief and a bit of go forward and a bit of dominance in some of those games that you would hope, the way the games are, and then maybe be really fresh and in good shape physically. And if you have bangs and knocks or injuries, that you can rest a few guys and maybe, look, we want to hope then that we're in a quarter-final. I still say that it's to lots of people, no matter what happens against Scotland, which is an incredibly difficult game for both sides because they've both got to hit the ground running. Japan is going to be a very tricky game for both Ireland and Scotland, and they could cause problems. And Russia, look, the reality is Ireland would beat Russia comfortably. Samoa could be an unknown entity as well. On their day, they can be very, very dangerous or powerful. So, but look, you would think you would be very optimistic that we'll get to that quarter-final stage, and it really ramps up another level tomorrow, Adrian, because I think, and I said this on breakfast this morning, that the importance of getting a win and maybe getting a good feeling out of the game tomorrow, I think you can't underestimate that.
Can I put it to you that conversely, Ronan O'Gara makes a point in the Examiner this morning that he's going about this in the opposite direction to what he would normally, in that he's more about the result than the performance. But the opposite side of that is, and it's possible that a la England a couple of weeks ago, we get a bit of a thumping here against a team that are also considered to be in the mix for Rugby World Cup, and the damage, potentially fatal damage that might do to the Irish psyche, and so, like,
but isn't it amazing, Adrian, that, and I'm not criticising you for this, that's the way we're thinking now of. We're pessimistic, aren't we? We're kind of pessimistic. We're now saying...
There's a realism about that. If you looked at what happened in England a couple of weeks ago.
Absolutely. So that's what it's kind of gone to now from opposed to we wish the World Cup was the end of 2018. That's the reality where the players are in. So what, if I was in the squad now, you've got to try and build a bit of confidence and self-belief, and not a siege mentality, because I sometimes I don't think a siege mentality is a good way to approach things. I think you need to have an honesty and a refreshness about maybe the way the group are feeling, and I think, you know, with Joe, Andy Farrell and the players, they've been quite open about where they're at, and particularly after Twickenham, Joe didn't kind of shirk the disappointment and it not being good enough. So I think you know, we're now in a what ifs this could happen, what if that could happen, and it is potential. You know, Wales probably are full of confidence. Gatland will love coming to Dublin again. He loves playing Ireland, and you know, they're a very dangerous side, and they have a lot of players who are maybe you know, were superb for them in when they're winning the Grand Slam this year. But I think, I do still believe, and I keep going back, I think there's a lot of good characters in that Irish side. They're better than what we've probably seen in recent times. And I don't think we're going to see the full deck of a game plan tomorrow either. So there's always a potential where you're kind of holding a few things back, and you're maybe solely relying on just tempo and intensity and aggression and simplicity, that you might come unstuck.
Yeah.
But what I would like to see tomorrow, and I said this before England, we need to be confrontational, Adrian, and I've spoken about this too many times, whereas, you know, rugby is about, and I always remember this being said to me as a kid, is winning the collisions and and that's not being crazily aggressive. It means just being ready emotionally and physically to make your tackles, to make your carries, to be aggressive and try to be dominant. You know, it is a physical game, and that's why I loved the game. I loved playing it with that physicality. And, you know, too many times with this Irish team, I feel for them, because I feel they're a very disciplined group of players, and it's one of the big strengths of the Irish team over the last number of years. Not just in 2018, and a lot of the other successes that they've had under Joe, but teams are kind of trying to bully us, and I don't want to see any more of that. I want us to be more confrontational and not taking shit, basically, that we've taken off teams. And you know what, if we're beaten then by a better side and we're not good enough, fair enough. I think the team are very talented, and I just think they need to be aggressive, and I think tomorrow's a great chance to lay down a marker and maybe just send out a little reminder that they're not gone away, really, and they've got to, you know, be physical.
For people who are still on the fence about Jean Klein, what should they look out for tomorrow?
Well, I think he needs to obviously do the basics well. He needs to make carries, he needs to make tackles, and you know, the scrum and line-out stuff it's non-negotiable for any player in a key position like that. He's got to scrummage well, and he's got to win lineouts, and sometimes he'll be lifting people in the lineouts and get all that stuff right. But I think we need to see a little bit of energy from him tomorrow, make some carries and make some tackles, and you know, the enforcer type tag, it can get lost sometimes and gets misconstrued, if you like. This enforcer tag and trying to be an enforcer is something you've got to be careful. He's got to play good rugby tomorrow, and there's a bit of pressure on him. Okay, the squad is picked, and he's not going to be released out of the squad tomorrow, but I think he's got to play and deliver a bit of a high-octane performance tomorrow for 50, 60 minutes and show people that, right, okay, maybe he can do some stuff here for us. And by all accounts, he has trained really well and made a massive impression in training when they have those kind of close contact sessions and stuff like that. But we've got to see it now. We've got to see it against a strong Wales side tomorrow.
Yeah, the area that's maybe most uncertainty about is the back row in terms of who's going to start where. And Conan obviously is a guy that's been spoken about a lot as number 8. for the first test? Is he in number 8 for you? What's the makeup of the back row?
I think the back row is not a certain selection. If you like, you can't put down 3 guarantees like we were doing for a long time.
Who would you go with?
It depends what happens tomorrow. I think Conan needs a big game himself. He's a very impressive player, and I'm always a fan of Jack Conan's, because I think he offers brilliant running style and variety in wider channels. I think CJ Stander is probably he's the architect probably of an underperforming team. He probably needs a team going well, CJ, to make his impact, because he's a world-class ball carrier when he's on the front foot. He just probably needs to be better when they're on the back foot a little bit. His work rate is just through the roof. He never stops working and moving. But I think, so maybe the two of them playing together, and they did play together for the test in Australia, the third test, and they played very well together. So I think those two guys working off each other and popping up in different areas and making hard carries could be a real good option for Ireland. I think Josh van der Fleer, and I think he's a great player, and he gets through a huge amount of work, but I think he needs to bring a little bit of an edge now. And Tipuric he's probably not the most physical player in the world. He's very confrontational, in your face, and he's aggressive and he's intense. So I just love to see a bit of dominance from Josh van der Fleer. We know he can do it. He's incredibly honest and he covers a lot of ground around the pitch. But I just like to see a little bit of an edge for him if he wants to start against Scotland, because I think it's a real option, a viable option to bring O'Mahony over there and play Stander and Conan together and O'Mahony. That could be an option for South Africa, or Rhys Ruddock can come into the mix as well, or Ty Byrne can come into the mix in that back row as well. So
is there a case for CJ Stander to have more of an impact off the bench, given how teams have figured out Ireland, given how the game might break down? You mentioned his ball carrying ability there.
I think CJ struggles a little bit if Ireland are not on the front foot, if their line-out's not good, they don't have those kind of good strike plays, they're not getting first, second phase quality ball, and there's an expectation that just give him the ball, and international rugby is a step up again where you get smashed no matter how big you are. There needs to be more creativity, and so I think his game has kind of probably dropped back a little bit because of the team have kind of dropped a level or two as well. So he won't want to be an impact player, but I've seen him come off the bench for the Lions before, and a couple of years ago, and he is full of vigour and enthusiasm. But
does he provide a bigger impact than Conan? Like, as a flanker, who's about like?
No, I think I'm not sure about that. I think someone like Rhys Ruddock can come off the bench and make a big impact.
Sure.
Ty Byrne is that all energy type player as well. If Van der Fleer was on the bench and you wanted to kind of, he's incredibly fit as well. So for any of them coming off the bench, you want something to happen quickly. So a turnover like from Byrne, or a big tackle from Ruddock, or a big carry from a Conan or a Stander. So it depends. It's kind of horses for courses. I think they can all the back rows can have a big say in trying to get into that team for Scotland.
On that basis, Quinny, can I ask you that question in a slightly different way? Why are we continuing to accommodate a player which is what we're doing this week by shifting him over to number 6? What's the thought process behind accommodating a player who's just been out of form when we have other options?
And you could definitely, Rhys Ruddock would have a legitimate argument to say, well, I want to start. Why aren't I starting as a 6? I think Joe is trying to get him to find that little bit of form and really hoping that he can get 50, 60 minutes. But Adrian, I know people, and look, this
that was the Eddie O'Sullivan thing. I'm just going to stick with you.
I know, but look, we're not there yet. So I think he will probably get 40, 50 minutes tomorrow to say, and he's probably got specific instructions to say, look, you've got to, these are the choices that if Stander has a stormer for the first 50 minutes tomorrow, well, we'll say, what will we say?
We're all back on board. Sure.
Because he has that
just
ability,
the evidence
to
isn't
be
there.
fair. Yeah, because look, he's not going to be picked on bad fitness scores or being out of shape or not training very hard. He's probably ticking all those boxes to an incredibly high standard. We know he's a very good player. So I think maybe the shift over and the less emphasis on controlling the ball at the scrum and just roam a little bit freer. Probably get stuck in and be closer to the ball a little bit more as a number 6. I would imagine the idea is to try and find a little bit of confidence with him. I would be pissed off if I was Rhys Ruddock, because I would want to start there and say, because he hasn't started since the Italy game. So look,
throw down your marker. Who are the 3 names you're starting back row for the Scotland game?
My starting names for the Scotland game are, because I expect Stander to up his game, probably O'Mahony, Stander and Josh van der Fleer, providing Stander plays well tomorrow. I think O'Mahony's probably, last week, he definitely played a lot better than he did against England, and probably to value the line out and stuff
he's immovable,
like that.
Isn't he, and his leadership?
And I think, well, he's not immovable. I don't think any of them are immovable. No, I don't think any of them are immovable. I think they've become, they probably were immovable 6 months ago, but I think you've got to keep them on their toes, because you will have an 07 thing where you had an incredible back row of Ferris. No, Ferris didn't play. Wallace, Leamy and Simon Easterby. Is that the back row? It was? Jesus, I can't even... It was, yeah, in 07. Yeah. Wally, Leamy and Simon. And phenomenal players who had delivered consistently and delivered after that World Cup again. Whereas myself and Neil Best was on the bench, but myself and Ferris were chomping at the bit. And, you know, so look, that didn't work out well. It's not a case of that scenario here, I think. But you've got to be careful, because if any of them feel they're 100% selected, certainly that bit of anxiety and nerves about, is my name going to be called out here? And they'll all want to start against Scotland. So I think Joe's got to keep them on their toes. So on the basis of Stander producing something better tomorrow and more impact, I think he'll probably start, and O'Mahony at 6. And I think you probably need an out-and-out 7 to go against Scotland, given the type of game that they play. So, but like I said, they've, you know, I think the reason O'Mahony was played as a 7 last week is an option for maybe bigger things down the line.
When are you off?
Not for another, the 18th of September, a week and a half, another 12 or 13 days.
Are you on the same flight?
Oh, absolutely. I'm doing the grind of the press conferences about a week before you get there.
Oh, you're going earlier?
Yeah, going early. Same day as the team.
Are you going to look after him?
I'll mind him.
That's part of your brief, Quinny.
I'll mind
so you understand. The most important, informative 80 minutes of our Rugby World Cup preparation is how O'Gara describes it in the paper this morning. So we shall see tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be plenty of conversation about it in the aftermath. Quinny, thanks a million for the minute. Enjoy your weekend and enjoy the game tomorrow. It's just gone 9 o'clock on this Friday morning. Still plenty to come. We're going to talk to Kevin Kilbane very shortly to get his thoughts on that 1-1 draw with Switzerland last night. But a reminder as well that we're broadcasting our Cadbury Roadshow with Gary Neville and Roy Keane at midday today, right across OTB Sports Radio. YouTube.com/off the ball, so go there and subscribe to catch that. And here in the meantime, another snippet of Roy Keane talking about success and culture at Manchester United in the 90s.
That way, I never felt at United, well, Gary might be different, but I just always felt that there was a bloody desire there was a hunger, it came down from the manager and the staff, the demands of the supporters. I even remember when I went to United, people talk about pressure, people are always using that word pressure. Pressure's great. Pressure's brilliant. Imagine playing for a team where there was no pressure. Yeah. You guys at United, 70,000 every week, home and away, the fans travelling on, the demands they put in you. I used to love that. I always worry when people don't put demands on you or don't put pressure on you. Yeah. Jesus, there's something drastically wrong there. But we were never blasé about our success. We never thought next year will be easy. You know, sometimes you might just win a league and you go, is it that enough? Should we be winning more Champions League? FA Cup doubles, surely we should be winning more doubles and all this. It's tough going. It's tough going winning these titles.
And would you be having those conversations in the dressing room when you come back in for pre-season when you didn't have the success in Europe?
No, I think it was just, you just smell it in the air going, no, lads, we've got to kick on again. And when we did win the odd trophy, you'd move on pretty quickly. Listen, you'd go out, we've had great nights and the drink, brilliant. Of course, you have to switch off as well. And you have to celebrate the highs in sport because you actually don't get that many. But also you have to move on quickly. I see and hear players celebrating a bit of success they had 10 years ago. Even though when people say to, I don't know what Gary's like, when he said to me, go, oh, you had a good career, I kind of cringe, going, just move on. Jesus Christ, it was a number of years ago. And when you're playing for Man United, and people go, oh, you won a few trophies. Well, yeah, what do you expect? We won't play for Yeovil. Man United, we're going to win trophies with bloody good players, with a good manager, great support, great characters. Jesus, work it out. We're going to be in the mix.
So simple.
So simple, says Gary Neville there, rounding off that clip. It was the Cadbury Off the Ball Roadshow at the Borgosh Energy Theatre this week. We, as mentioned, are going to be playing that full thing, all 3 hours of it, on OTB Sports Radio and across the Off the Ball channels from midday today. And subscribe to our YouTube channel where we'll hit you up with all of our latest broadcasts. Arthur O'Dea from Off the Ball joins us in the studio now. Arthur, how are you going?
Not so bad, how are you?
Excellent. We're changing tack significantly, I think it's fair enough to say. One of the most interesting pieces on the website this week is in relation to a young Sligo footballer who had the world at his feet almost in terms of departure into professional sport, and has just decided it's not for him.
Yeah, so I think he was talking, he got the offer I think around June of last year, so still just a little bit over a year. Went over, signed I think in September, went over to Australia to play AFL with North Melbourne in January.
It's Red Oak Murphy.
Red Oak Murphy from Sligo, Curry in South Sligo, and basically opted after about a few weeks, kind of decided it wasn't for him, and battled with it in his own mind for a while, talked to family, coaches, and then just opted to come home.
Why so?
It was funny because it was reported at the time by the AFL, or the AFL's website, that it was due to homesickness, which I don't know, like if you're familiar with Sligo, like Curry and South Sligo will be relatively rural, it's fair, and it's just on the Mayo border almost. And talking to him, that's what I expected would be the case, that he kind of just couldn't hack it that far from home, and it was couldn't be further from the case. It was just the case that he really disliked the sport.
Right.
He just couldn't.
So tell us a bit about, so he was like a very talented minor who, by his own admission, didn't know what the hell Aussie rules was up to about a year before he went out.
Talented to the extent that he was recruited at 17. I mean, alongside Anton Toll from Derry and Mark Keane from Cork. So he went over and he went up to the Combine in UCD, not really expecting at all to get recruited, but thought it would be an interesting kind of thing just for the year. Maybe he does it next year, then he goes back again. But he gets called up, gets signed up by North Melbourne, goes over, and it just didn't work. He kind of went over with the ambitions, again, knowing very little about the sport, but he's like, well, this is professional sport, I can make a go of this, I could be here for a decade, 15 years. And just very quickly kind of fell away. It kind of just virtually, he described it as sort of a kick and catch game. He didn't really let you demonstrate your skills. He was kind of in full forwards for Sligo, and it just never took off for him in the same sort of way. He kind of, and as you're saying with the regards not knowing much about the game, I think he said that he hadn't even heard of it before someone else from, I think, his school went up to that same Combine the year before. So he's really going into this with very little awareness of what he was going into, but still sort of objectively had quite a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Just.
And it seems also like was it Kieran Kilkenny a couple of years ago who went out and gave it a bash and then just said, listen, I'm actually way more passionate about this other sport over here. Like, this is actually really what I want to do, albeit on an amateur level. That seemed to be a huge driving factor for him.
Yeah, I found that striking as well. I don't know why. You don't really often tend to hear it as much, but he just really, really loves Gaelic football, which isn't that unusual, again, for that part of Sligo. I mean, the majority of Sligo outside the town is mostly Gaelic football anyway, but a little bit of hurling this year. But he just loves it, and there was a kind of a sort of a watershed moment then where he comes home and goes up to the pitch at Curry and just playing around with his brothers and stuff, and kind of with the ball back in his hands, that it's just, that sort of felt right.
Yeah.
And obviously, yeah, so that was just kind of it for him. He just...
Very, very interesting, like that the AFL themselves would actually put up the statement that he was homesick. Maybe that was an honest mistake. Maybe they thought that actually the thing that gave him all the homesickness was actually missing the sport that he loved the most. Maybe they have some sort of qualification.
Yeah, they didn't certainly qualify it if they did, but yeah, I suppose it doesn't reflect. It seems to be a thing, because I remember reading another piece about Mark Keane that Maurice Brosnan had done, and it was a similar situation that Keane, even though I think he went over, I think he's at Collingwood now still, but he went over, but the piece was still very much still my dream to play for Cork. I still have to win a Munster final or Ireland final. And despite the same thing, it's like, I'll give this a chance because it's once in a lifetime really, and it's just a chance you're not really going to get probably in most other avenues. That if a GA player is likely to go into professional sport at that age, that's, I suppose, the most likely kind of transition. That's the optimum choice anyway.
Well, it's like funny because the kick and catch game expression is something that's just there that you mentioned a bit earlier on, that I'm sure AFL people who are passionate about it would probably challenge strongly enough. Like, there's obviously a physicality about it, and there can be like I was watching some of the clips of Mark O'Connor over the last 24 hours, the young Kerry player who went out a couple of years ago and seems to have made a fantastic success out of it. Like, some of that skill set would suggest that there can be more to it than just a kick and catch game.
Yeah, I don't think he was attempting to be too disparaging, but I suppose he was very kind of praiseworthy of the enormous athleticism of the whole thing and the sort of life lessons and general approach to training and everything else that he learned while there. But I suppose, I mean, you kind of, when you watch the pitch, it's enormous. It's such, I suppose that the idea of him as a corner forward or full forward operating in slightly tighter spaces, that there probably isn't the same need for that sort of skill set on that dynamic with the pitch that is so big, with just such an array of space to play around in, that there's just other attributes that are more highly prized in that environment.
Well, like, I mean, the contradiction is that the great formation of Gaelic football, when it was first thought about in a tactical sense, was catch and kick, and that is where the game originated, when people started to think about the game more intellectually than they used to. So I don't know, like, I know the game has progressed a million miles away from that point, but they are still two highly important components of the way Gaelic football is played.
Well, sure, they're trying to make them more prized by the various marks or whatever else. The Mark O'Connor story, is it finals this weekend? Am I right? They're heading into the finals?
I think they're playing tonight, Mark O'Connor and Zach Toohey for Geelong.
For Geelong.
I think it's on Friday night, I'm not sure.
Collingwood, like, O'Connor was the guy that people won't remember. He went out there at the end of 2016. You can see Tomás O'Shea's tweet there. He was pretty fuming about it at the time. But it's made a real, like, a pretty immediate impact. He went out at the end of 2016, started to get into the team May 2017, cut his teeth, I think, at VFL, and is now, I read from quote from one of his coaches saying that he does something every other week that we're going, Jesus, this guy's good. Like, the one that got away on was...
If he could stop doing that ASAP, please, that'd be great.
He'd be so massive, wouldn't he?
I was making this very point earlier in the week, when it's like, this Kerry team is going to be around for a long time. Once David Moran retires, no, they're not. They needed Mark O'Connor was supposed to be that next man up to be the next great Kerry midfielder. But
to be fair, he comes back. Was it this year? He came back and there just happened to be a bit of championship going on for Dingle.
For Dingle, and then somebody from East Kerry conveniently managed to... Sorry, not from East Kerry. Word managed to conveniently make its way to Geelong. That he was...
Definitely not from East Kerry.
And then he was suspended and was relegated to Mayorishka for the East Kerry Championship game, where we had the massive brawl, if you might remember.
His club said, cut that out. You're not doing that again.
Exactly, yeah. But
and he was Mark Donaghy
who tipped them off, in the previous game, but they ended up beating East Kerry anyway, and did lose the county final.
That sort of will be the tipping point, though, as well, when it comes to regards AFLW, and obviously you have now so many female players going out from the LGFA here, that, or the ladies Gaelic football here, that at the moment they can kind of parry both, but sooner or later it seems from speaking to certain players out there that that's not going to be the case.
Right.
And it kind of, again, it makes that sort of... It just shows, I suppose, that it's the case. Not necessarily Red O'Murphy made the decision to come home, but there's not necessarily the same hankering, or there's just that same hankering exists probably with a lot of players there to actually still do both.
Yeah.
But obviously it's just not really feasible.
Right, you can check out that story. Thanks a million, Arthur, for coming in. Thanks a lot. You can check out that full story. It's up on offtheball.com. Get yourself along there to get that full in-depth read there from Arthur. Right, we mentioned a bit earlier on, the recently retired David Myler joined us in co-commentary last night for the Ireland-Switzerland game, and afterwards gave his thoughts on the result to Nathan.
So not for the first time in this campaign, the Republic of Ireland get out of jail. David McGoldrick's late equaliser means Ireland are still unbeaten and still top of Group D in Euro 2020 qualification. David Myler was alongside me. David McGoldrick was very much the hero. Was that a deserved point for Ireland?
Overall, on the balance of things, I'd probably say yeah. Yes, Switzerland, you know, if you watch the highlights back, Switzerland probably played a little bit better football than Ireland, probably more comfortable in the opposition's half. But on the chances created, you look at, McGoldrick, You spoke about broke through just before half time and flashed the ball across the box. Yeah, he should probably pick Callum out. James broke through after some great work from Jeff Hendrick. James probably should have done better, probably should have got a shot off. But, the one good chance, Switzerland created, they scored. Switzerland are a good team, they've good players. So at times it is going to be difficult. I know people want Ireland to get on the front foot, try and dominate possession, but it is difficult because a lot of these players are playing with top teams in Germany, as you said, and other European sides. So it is difficult.
Well, you've played in games like this. In fact, we've seen this game 20 times over the last 10 years where Ireland let the opposition dominate possession, they get the goal, and suddenly Ireland come alive. And we saw that again from Jeff Hendrick and Conor Howard, and particularly Glenn Whelan maybe not been overly involved in the game. The second they went behind, suddenly Glenn Whelan decided, I'm going to take control here.
Yeah, it's always a tough one because, like you said, I've been in those situations where I don't know, is it you're 0-0 and you're thinking, right, we're in the game, let's stay at this, and then you get to half time and think, all right, we've done 45 like this, and then the Swiss players up the tempo a little bit and probably create something, and then the pressure is off. You're thinking, right, I need to get on the ball, I need to make something happen, I need to dictate the game, which the lads did. And the response after the goal was huge. And as you said, Glenn, who's inevitably Ireland's holding midfielder, bursting a gut to get onto the edge of the box, cracks the ball off the bar, gets they break down the side. James McLean does a huge run, wins the ball back off Kevin Mbu, puts in a cross, and McGoldrick goes and he blows everyone out of his way, and he gets his first international goal.
He seems like he's an incredibly popular member of the squad as well, Dave McGoldrick.
No, everyone is. Obviously there's a couple of young lads I don't know, but the majority of them were all I've shared the dressing room with. Yeah, he is. He probably felt he should have probably played more under Martin O'Neill. That conversation's for a different day, but now under Mick McCarthy, a manager who knows him very well, has him playing great stuff, and I'm delighted for him because there was chances in other games, especially Gibraltar, that you were hoping he would get the first one, because look, since Robbie Keane retired, there's always that question's going to be asked, who is going to step up and score, and somebody has to take the mantle. No, please God, McGoldrick does.
How much would you love to be in that dressing room down there right now?
Well, I'm going to head down that way now in a minute.
Just hang around outside, lads. I
think I'll be all right getting in now. I will see. Come back in a couple of years.
yeah.
I'm not. Look,
You've done a bit more punditry and you've had to criticise a few people.
Yeah, well, if they deserve criticism, they'll get it. But tonight, everyone deserves, full round of applause. I thought the two centre halves were excellent in their defending. The fullbacks were getting forward. We spoke, about Endes probably starting a bit slow, but gradually grew into the game. Some excellent one-on-one defending. If any young fullback out there, just have a look at him in the second half, especially. As you said, the midfield three got going. It's difficult because with them playing wing backs, they have inevitably 5 across the midfield, and they pin our back 4 back, which then McLean and Callum have to come back so far. They have more numbers, so they can keep the ball more. But and then we spoke about McGoldrick, who's rightly man the match. But there were some great performances, especially the last 25 minutes, when it's very easy when you go 1-0 down to throw in the towel and kind of give up hope.
All right, on we roll to Tbilisi.
Well, we'll see.
We'll have you back. I don't know if we'll drag you that far though.
I've been to Georgia before, I'll go back.
All right, we'll see what we can do.
Nothing like a good editorial meeting on air right at the end of the piece. That was David Myler in conversation with Nathan after the game last night. Kevin Kilbane's thoughts upcoming for you in just a couple of moments. But a reminder that next week, right here on OTB AM, we're going to be going through the Electric Ireland Minor Star Awards, running through each of the winners from the hurling and from the football, though. We do need to let you know that it's a massive congratulations to the Cork goalkeeper, Cian O'Leary. You'll remember this from the game at the weekend. The Douglas Club man has been crowned the Electric Ireland Player of the Week, and very well deserved. He held off competition in the end from his teammate Conor Corbett, of course, who scored a goal and 7 points, and the Galway full forward Tom O'Culhan as well. But it was Cian O'Leary's calmness under pressure, I suppose, right at the end there when that goal went in. It looked as if in normal time all was done for, but he kept his head, got the ball out quickly. They went right down the other end and banged it in the back of the net. It was a mad game.
Yeah, maturity beyond his years, I think it's fair to say. We were speaking about it earlier in the week as well, that there was an acute awareness of what was happening, what needed to be done, and the disappointment and turning that into a potential opportunity was something that he did. And like, I think Galway got a bit of criticism for how they defended that late goal from Cork in normal time, but I think Cian O'Leary has to take huge credit for it, and I think the praise has to go to Cork.
Yeah, no, fair play. And they beat Galway 320 to 314. It was such a big margin in the end after having been so tight for that duration of it. So that is massive congratulations, Cian O'Leary, the Cork goalkeeper, the Electric Ireland Player of the Week. And as I said, stay tuned. Next week we're going to be going through the Electric Ireland Minor Star Awards. Right, we're going back to Ireland, Switzerland. Kevin Kilbane is on the line, and we'll be talking to him in just a moment. But before that, the thoughts afterwards of Ireland defender Enda Stevens.
Might have been a couple of misplaced passes in the first half, but you really grew into it and got better as the game wore on.
Yeah, it was tough. First half I couldn't really get the grips with, as I said, how they were playing and where the space was and where the passes were, and that was a frustrating thing. But we got ourselves together in the second half. At half time, you kind of seeing through the tough spell which we had to do, and got in at half time, had a talk, had a chat, and we came out second half. We started second half well.
Is it the final third that you need to kind of improve in? Because the play from, I suppose, back up to the midfield, and it's just that final third maybe you need to kind of, I suppose, find that killer instinct.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's room for improvement all over the pitch. It's just teams are going to come here, they're going to be difficult to beat, they're going to be difficult to get the ball off, and they're going to be difficult to play against, and we just got to, as you said, work on what we're doing and believe in what we're doing, and we are. I mean, you could see that we went to goal behind.
Having seen what they did tonight, would you feel confident now going to Geneva to face Switzerland?
Yeah, you'll always feel confident going. We go till the end, we with them having a lot of possession, we kind of limited the little chances, even though like they did have a lot of possession around the edge of our box, and they did cut us open for the goal. But I thought we had just as much chances.
And Stevens there talking to Stephen Doyle after the game last night. 9:20 on this Friday morning. Kevin Kilbane, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian. How are you keeping?
Good. Having watched that game last night, looking at our position in the group, how confident are you about our prospects of getting to Euro 2020, or are we still sort of skating on thin ice a bit?
Well, if we qualify, if we've ever qualified, it's always been maybe skating on thin ice, hasn't it? So, it wasn't a conclusive performance. It wasn't the greatest in terms of how we played, but it was about getting the job done last night, and the reaction in the last 10 or 15 minutes, which I'm sure that many would point out to. Sometimes we should be starting games a lot better, and we could be doing a lot better in the early stages of matches, but. It was another point towards what's the ultimate goal now, and that's the ultimate thing I think about it really. We've got a long way to go, I think, in terms of performance wise, but I think last night was that little battling performance that we know that's always within the Irish team. We were talking to Stephen Kelly about it a bit earlier on. Is that just the personality of our team now, Kev, that we are going to be under the pump against the better teams for long tracks of the game? I mean, we wouldn't wish to be cut open, I don't think, through the middle as much as we were last night, but that ultimately that's kind of the personality of our team. We're going to be under the pump. In some ways, conceding early might be the best thing that we can do because it so massively changed the momentum of that game. Yeah, you wouldn't like it to be like that. You'd feel as though, and I know that Switzerland, they are the best team in the group. They're better than Denmark, I think, as a team. I think 1 to 11. I think they're better than 11. Better 11. Yes, I know Eriksen's in Denmark's team, but I do feel as though that they're a better team. There were times without the ball. I think we didn't look the greatest last night. I don't think we were compact enough, as you maybe pointed out there. We were opened up through the middle a couple of times last night. That, of course, that came from the goal. But in saying that, I do feel as though that there are times when we do have the ball that we can actually encourage each other to take the ball in certain passages of play, rather than just that one ball. We always see in fullback positions there's only one option. One option it is to clip it down the line to turn the opposition, and that is the only pass that seems to be on a lot of the time. I do feel as though when that ball was being played at times, it could have been played into the middle of the park. And my big gripe is with that ball. Yes, I understand at times it's got to be on when you've got to turn opposition, you've got to try and turn them down the sides, you've got to try and dislodge them. But when that ball is played, the midfield man would never have a go at fullbacks. He'd never have a go at centre halves because they're in a better position to take it. It's almost as if, right, that's accepted. We go and squeeze with play now and try and get second balls. But the distance is far too great for that midfielder to make up when he's shown for the initial pass.
we can demonstrate in games, as we did last night, that when we went behind and actually when the pressure's on, we have the capacity to put pressure on teams and to create openings. Why is it not possible for us to do that before we concede?
Well, I think the second half, the way it was going, we were getting outclassed, totally getting outclassed. We were getting overrun in every department. They looked like they had a bit too much pace than us. They had too much technical ability than us. And they just looked like they were confident. The confidence was up with them, and we were struggling to deal with that. And I think it was almost as if the turn, that was just what naturally happened in the game last night. They were up, they scored the goal, they think they've maybe got the job done, and it was, all hell, everything's lost now, let's go for it. We're going to have to go for it. We're going to have to try to get something out of the game. And that was the only turning in the game last night. There was nothing else to suggest that game was probably going to be played out for a 0-0 draw. And I think if we'd have come in and drew the game 0-0 the way it turned out, the way that second half was going, I think we'd have been sat here now today going, just same old performance. It wasn't necessarily the greatest show today, but because there was that little bit of a reaction that we've always had, and that's not last night. There's a lot of character in the side, and there's always been a lot of character in the Irish sides. Because that character was shown, I think we're looking at this game in a different light. The second half we were outclassed, I think, and I think worryingly outclassed. I think because we never really got to grips with how they played throughout the second half. And I think in spells in the first half, I think we started a little bit nervy. We didn't really get any link-up play in the wide areas. I think in the midfield parts of the game, we didn't really get any sort of momentum. We weren't passing forward enough. We weren't getting David McGoldrick into the game enough. So it wasn't the greatest performance. But as I was saying, I did like it in terms of how we responded. And I thought the last 15, 20 minutes of the game, once we did concede, the real bigger players or the bigger personalities in the side really stood up.
Kevin, just to come back to your point on Ireland's approach in terms of perhaps clipping the ball forward down the two flanks, which is kind of, as you say, a hopeless ball, but it does allow Ireland to press up when it gets the defence turning. What is that tweak then? Because it sounds from the way you're talking that this could be a tactical shift. You can't just blame the quality of our midfield. Is it the fullback passing to Glenn Whelan or to Conor Howarth a little bit more, and then the ball is clipped forward from a more advanced position, or what way do you see it?
Well, the ball is always on into the middle of the park. You're watching the game last night. When you can clearly see that it's always on. My problem being with it's when maybe that central midfield player is not necessarily screaming at whether it be Coleman or whether it be Stevens that's in possession, whether it be either of those. No one is actually screaming at them just to receive that little bit of a pass. I understand in games, certainly the first 20, 25 minutes of a game, ideally you'd want it to be a little bit more open where you can have a bit more time to play, but how congested games are, most of the time, that ball is on, and that ball is the only one that you have to play, that you might not necessarily have too many options. That little bit of edginess that's around the game, you don't want to concede early in the game that it's got to be done. But as the game drags on, and it's always that old adage, as the game drags on and the game gets a little bit more stretched, the midfield man is the key. And the midfield players, again, last night, I felt at times were, once that ball was played into midfield, if it ever was played, the ball was going back towards play, and the play was becoming very congested. So the only option that a fullback would have when that ball was given back to him was to turn. And it was hopeful ball rather than actually that little bit of quality last night. I don't think David McGoldrick, I think he played well last night, but I don't think he had really great service throughout. There wasn't really any balls that were played into him along the floor to his feet, so he had time to take the ball and maybe bring others into it. I don't think that was able to happen enough last night.
Yeah, we'll see how this pans out over the next few months, obviously. Kev, did you watch the Roadshow?
No, I haven't seen it yet. But I'll probably catch up with that today. It looked like they all had a great time anyway. Yeah.
That's all you have to say on it, is it?
Well, what else is there to say? Yeah.
You tell me.
But the one thing that always makes me laugh though when the other night when Roy was questioning players maybe turning up and not training at the international level, I distinctly remember throughout my international career that there would always be a special exception made that Roy would always be able to turn up a day or two later than the rest of the squad, and maybe in the lead up to an international. So there was always that little bit of leeway made for our best player, of course.
You're polishing his medals, Kevin, I'd say.
Exactly, that's what it would be. Yeah, that's
Well,
what it would be.
We know you haven't seen. We know you haven't seen any of it. So once you've done that.
Well, I saw a few of the clips that you put up on Twitter. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, look.
Medals defines the man, of course.
Midday today, Kev. I know you're going to be tuned into it. It's gone out in full, so we might get your thoughts after that. I know you have to get your skates on, so we will catch up with you again over the next few days.
All right, all the best. Cheers, lads.
Take it easy.
Take
Kevin
it easy.
Kilbane on the line there. From Kevin Kilbane Towers. Quick ad break, then Phil Egan.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
I hear you some wiring needs a fixing, ma'am. The name's Buzz, on account of my work.
No chance.
Not all cowboys ride horses. All safe electric registered electrical contractors must give you a certificate of completion that shows their work meets approved standards. Find one nearby on safeelectric.ie.
The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts is back at the City West Convention Centre, Dublin, from the 6th to the 12th of October. See 32 of the biggest darting stars on the planet, including world number 1 Michael van Gerwen, former Grand Prix champion Darrell Gurney, plus fan favourite Peter Wright. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.ie and search darts. The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts at City West. Game on.
OTB AM.
Right, almost 9:30 on this Friday morning. Lesson not delayed. Phil Egan, good morning to you.
Very well, yeah. How are you doing?
I'm flying, thanks very much. Reaction to last night, is that where we're kicking things off?
Yeah, I've actually just put up a piece on the offtheball.com, just kind of what's ahead for Ireland. Obviously, after last night's draw, we were on 11 points. We're 3 ahead of Denmark. But take into consideration, Denmark have to play Gibraltar one more time, Switzerland 2 games. So effectively, we're all going to be on 11 points with 3 games to play. So we have away trips against Georgia and Switzerland, and then obviously in October and then in November, Denmark come to town. Adrian, I know you've been to Tbilisi. I was there myself with you.
We shared some great times.
Yeah, and
over some odd hummus, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we ordered badly that night.
It wasn't hummus, it was weird.
I don't even know if it was chicken I got, Adrian.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't.
What, you thought you were ordering what? A plate
hummus.
But like, why would you just get hummus?
Hummus is a beautiful food. It was a starter.
Hummus not like a dip.
It was a starter. Yeah, it was a starter. So I'm sure there was something else in it, but it was like there was 3 portions of hummus, each of about that size, and it wasn't hummus. It was.
What did you think it was?
Manky. What did I think it was afterwards?
Yeah.
Some sort of cabbage maybe or something. I don't know. It was disgusting.
Yeah. So that's the kind of things you've got to take into account when you go to Georgia. Like what you eat. Plus, it's a tough place to get 3 points. Obviously, we drew 1-1 there last campaign.
Whatever about the hummus, it's a hard place to get 3 points. Fair point.
Well, the game that we were at was Martin O'Neill's first competitive game, and that needed a wonder goal from Aidan McGeady to rescue the win. So it's Ireland are going to have to beat Georgia, and then if they could draw with Switzerland and Denmark, then if there's a winner in the Switzerland-Denmark game, which incidentally is on the same day that we play Georgia, we actually played Georgia just before the Denmark and Switzerland game in Copenhagen. So a lot of permutations, but it's a tough task ahead. Right now with 3 games to play, I'm not overly confident that we're going to secure that top 2 finish. But one thing the team showed last night was there is plenty of heart. We'll probably all have a keen eye on tonight's game in Tala, because Stephen Kenny's under-21s play Armenia, and I suppose we're interested to see what the next generation looks like in terms of the way they play. And a lot of talk has been of Troy Parrott, but it doesn't look like he's going to start, because Stephen Kenny was asked about him. He said Troy's only 17. He's one of a number of good strikers. It's very competitive. Adam Ida has done well for us. Jonathan Afolabi got picked in the top 4 players in the under-19 European Championships. Aaron Connolly played for Brighton against City last week and scored in the Carabao Cup. So Troy is just coming in and finding his way. He needs time and he needs to get games under his belt. So it sounds like if he is going to play tonight, it'd be a cameo off the bench. That game kicks off at 8 o'clock. Also 2 games in the SSE Electricity League Premier Division. Dundalk will open up a 10-point lead if they beat Cork City at Oriel Park. Finn Harps host St. Pat's. Serena Williams just 1 win away from a 24th Grand Slam singles title. She beat Alina Svitolina in the semi-finals of the US Open to set up a meeting with Canada's Bianca Andreescu in Saturday's final. Andreescu is 19, which means she wasn't born when Serena Williams won her first US Open title in 1999. And Padraig Harrington's already out in the course on day 2 of the European Open in Hamburg. He bogeyed his first hole. He's since dropped back to 1 over. Matthias Schwab leads the way on 5 under par.
Okay, Phil, thanks million for that. And that is it from us for today. Eoin?
Thank you, Adrian.
Thanks a lot.
How are you? Have a great weekend. Or I don't know, what are your plans for the weekend, Adrian? Let's turn the tables here.
I have no plans.
Okay, thanks for that. Thanks, Adrian.
Family time.
Rugby.
Family time.
Probably watch the rugby, yeah. You?
Same, yeah, family time.
Batten down the hatches because it's big weekend.
Yeah, family time.
Upcoming. Family time, yeah. Thanks, Eoin. 9:30 this Friday morning. Delighted to have you along with us this morning. It's pretty much it from us. Just a reminder that from midday on OTB Sports Radio, we're going to be broadcasting the full Cadbury Roadshow with Roy Keane and Gary Neville and Nathan and Joe at the Borgash Energy Theatre on Wednesday night. It's upcoming. It'll be on offtheball.com/radio. It'll also be on the Go Loud app, so get yourself along there and download that. And as well on youtube.com/offtheball. And Off the Ball, of course, back tonight from 7 o'clock on your radio, live from 1 o'clock Saturday and Sunday. We're back Monday morning from 7:30. Good morning.
OTB